We're ready. Thanks.
City Clerk, would you call the roll? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You were at. I'm sorry. I know.
Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen. Here. Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tindem.
Here.
Alderman Grover.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
9-0.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, August 13th, 2012 meeting of the Evanston City Council. First item is the Mayor's public announcements. The Makers Fair, which was put on by Carolyn Dellutri and the Tech Innovation Center, was absolutely marvelous, and I hope it's repeated. It was tremendous for young children, and it was also terrific for adults who have inquisitive minds, which means most of Evanston. So I hope that next year it will happen again and at a different time so that teachers can encourage classes to go, because it was truly a marvelous event. And I would like to thank everyone who came Thursday night to the race dialogues. It was very well done. The committee did a terrific job, and everyone was contributing and working hard to make Evanston a better community. So I greatly appreciate all their efforts. And I'd like to do a shout out to Troop 929, who are earning their communications merit badges and citizenship in the community badges. So welcome, Troop 929. City Manager, do you have an announcement? Oh, we have a presentation by Citizens for a Greener Evanston. Welcome, Eleanor Ravel and Ron.
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, I'm here this evening on behalf of Citizens Greener Evanston to say thank you for your unanimous decision earlier this year to contract for 100% renewable energy when you arrange with a supplier for alternate electricity for Evanston residents. With this month's utility bills, our residents should begin to see the significant savings that are going to come to them through aggregation, and Evanston is going to finally be on the path to achieving its 2012 greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. Evanston, as you may know, is just one of a handful of Illinois communities whose progressive and forward-thinking leaders recognize the importance of choosing 100% renewable energy. And being a green city is a reputation that Evanston can be proud of, and we hope it's a reputation that you will believe is worth upholding when it comes time to entering into a new contract for aggregation next year. So as a token of our appreciation and to keep the message of 100% renewable energy before you in the coming months, we have a little something for everybody. Is this bribing the elected officials?
Thank you very much.
So we have one for everybody. One for Catherine Hurley, of course. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a great evening. We have hats and shirts.
And burgers.
And burgers and candy. Wow. City Manager, do you have any announcements that can top that?
You betcha. Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. We have several items, and many of them are awards. And Madam Mayor, if you wouldn't mind going into the well to receive the first of the awards, and that will be from Matt Swinkowski, our acting citizen engagement coordinator. If you have not heard, Erica Storley did have her twins, a boy and a girl, and they are doing well. So, but Matt is our acting citizen engagement coordinator, division manager for the next few months. Adelita Hernandez is our citizen engagement coordinator, and we're here tonight to present the mayor with an award that the city received from the Public Technology Institute, which recognized 10 city, county, and state governments as the country's leaders in the innovative application of Web 2.0 technology and civic social media tools. The city of Evanston, along with other awardees, were selected for achieving impressive results in citizen engagement, government accountability, and operational effectiveness. The city was honored along with San Francisco, California, West Palm Beach, Florida, and Boston, Massachusetts in the city category. The states, Delaware, Missouri, Utah, and California, and 2 counties, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Oakland County, Michigan. But the city of Evanston was singled out for its police tweet-along, which we conducted back on November 4th. So, Madam Mayor, on behalf of your staff, we're very proud to be in the company of San Francisco and Boston as communities that are excelling in citizen engagement activities, and we present this award to you on behalf of the staff. But wait, there's more. Next, I'd like to ask Marty Lyons to come up and present to you on behalf of the city an award from the Government Finance Officers Association.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Clerk Green, Manager Bobkowitz, Marty Lyons, Assistant City Manager, CFO. Tonight, we have our annual presentation, and I'm proud to say it is... That's correct. We're going to change things up a little bit. It is our Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. The city has received this award for many years in a row. Not all communities do receive this award, and the reason they do not is they do not apply the same standards necessary to achieve the award, and those standards all center around an ability to view the document, read the document, and understand the document. Just like our Certificate of Excellence for Financial Reporting, the city has had a very long tenure of unbroken streaks for earning this award each year. And tonight, as always, we present it to the council, but I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the budget team, including Wally Bobkowitz, Lou Gergitz, Brandon Dieter, Joe McCrae, for their hard work in receiving this award year in and year out. Last year, I know I didn't get a picture with the mayor, and I wanted to have that as a part of the process. So thank you very much for allowing staff the ability to apply for this award and the time to complete it. I think it speaks very well for Evanston. I think it always helps us having both of those big financial documents at this level, helps us keep our AAA rating along with a readable document on our financial plan. So, Madam Mayor.
No, that's all yours.
Congratulations.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry I have no more awards to give you this evening, but we do have a couple of additional announcements. Suzette Robinson, I take that back. Jim Mayworm, our Superintendent of Streets and Sanitation, is here to talk about, if you can believe it, Labor Day holiday refuse schedule.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Clerk Green, Manager Bobkowitz. Yes, unfortunately, autumn is right around the corner, and September 3rd, Monday, September 3rd is, of course, Labor Day, which means there'll be no solid waste or yard waste collection on that day. One day, it'll be one day back from that point forward. Recycling will also not take place on Monday, September 3rd, and recycling will be caught up by Wednesday, the 5th. Just wanted to take a moment to remind all of our residents to be on the lookout for that. It's 3 weeks away, but it seems time flies. So, any questions? Or thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another event that's coming up very soon is our annual community picnic. Doug Gaynor, Director of Parks, Recreation, Community Services, has a plug for that.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Clerk Green, City Manager Bobkowitz. Community picnic, August 26th, 12 noon to 5 p.m. right out back in Ingram Park. Going to be a lot of activities, a lot of free food. We invite everybody in the city to come join us. We're still looking for a few good folks to be in our dunk tank. Please give me a call or email me. I'm getting all stares. Nobody's nodding yes. Okay. Well, we hope to see you all out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, one last announcement. Adelita Hernandez, our Citizen Engagement Coordinator.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, City Clerk. I just wanted to invite you and the rest of Evanston to come to our very first Jalisco in Evanston. We're working with the Federation of Hometown Associations of the state of Jalisco to celebrate upcoming Hispanic Heritage Month. We will have a live mariachi. There will also be contemporary and folkloric dance troupes along with artisans straight from Mexico. The event will be free and open to the public. It's Thursday, August 30th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. at the Levy Center, and there's more information on the website. We've also left some flyers on your respective places so you can see more details. So I hope to see all of you there.
Thank you.
And this marks a new initiative. We, as you know, have been working with the Mexican consulate here in Chicago for a number of years, but we have discovered that the state of Jalisco in Mexico, many of our Latino residents have homes and families that are in Jalisco, and so we are working now with the Jalisco state government with the Jalisco state government and this association here in the Chicago area. So I think this is another step as we reach out and connect with the Latino population here in Evanston. So.
And I just want to make a quick note. The mariachi that's coming was the same one that played at the Shanghai World Expo. So it's a really nice setup that we have.
Well, very good. Thanks very much. And Madam Mayor, that concludes my reports.
Thank you. And could someone bring me the citizen comment sign-up sheet? Thanks. Oh, whoops, Mr. Green is hiding them. Thank you, Mr. Green. If anybody wants to sign up who wasn't able to, please let us know. Come right up. Mr. Green, do you have communications for us?
Yes, I have a few for this evening, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to make the announcement that as of September 4th, the clerk's office will be open permanently from 8:30 to 5 once again. So for all of you all who were patient enough through the times that we were closed for the hour between 1 and 2, we will now be open back our regular hours from 8:30 to 5 o'clock Monday through Friday. Also for you all who have been calling and asking about the early voting for the November election, early voting will start October 22nd through November 3rd. And for those who plan on running for office in April 9, 2013, you can begin circulating your petitions no sooner than September 25th, and the filing dates are December 17th through the 24th, but we are trying to change that 24th last day of submitting your petitions because nobody wants to be in the office on Christmas Eve. So those are announcements for tonight, and just keeping in mind that you can go online and get your packet for the candidates who are thinking about running in April. You can go to the County Board of Elections, and then you can download your forms there. If you need any other information, you can contact the clerk's office at 847-448-8189, anytime between 8:30 and 5 o'clock p.m. That's all for this evening, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll have citizen comment once all the citizens have signed up for it, which is our fault. It should have been out there. Sorry. That's okay. That'll work. As long as I can read them. Thank you.
I'm putting it on.
All right, now I hope everybody has signed up who wants to, and we're ready for citizen comment. Citizen comment is an important part of council meetings. We welcome comments from all citizens, and we encourage the expression of different opinions and viewpoints. Comments from concerned citizens are another reason that makes the city of Evanston a remarkable place to live. In terms of the Kendall matter, the city's Board of Ethics concluded its independent investigation and determined there was no conflict of interest regarding the Kendall matter. Pursuant to Council Rule 6.4, that matter is concluded and is beyond the jurisdiction of the Council. All further redundant comments made on this subject, made by any speaker, will be ruled out of order. No further redundant and duplicative comment, such comment which has gone on for over 17 months, will be heard on the Kendall matter at this or any other council meeting. This ruling is in accordance with the council rules, the holding of the U.S. Supreme Court in Perry Education Association versus Perry Local Educators Association, and Section 206G of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. There are citizen comment time limits because of the number of speakers tonight. Each speaker will be held to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Free speech is protected by the First Amendment. Striking another individual is a crime not protected by the First Amendment. Lastly, all speakers should keep in mind that the tone of the comment should be civil. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to call the first 4 speakers. Please give your name and address. First is the Chamber of Commerce, 1508 Sherman, on the Burger Wars, the Evanston History Center, Jeff Smith and Junad Rizki.
Madam Mayor, mother-in-law, Council, hello. I'm Patrick Hughes. I live at 1317 Livingston. This is Sean O'Grady, who's the Executive Vice President at the hospital, North Shore Health Systems, and our folks from the Chamber are here as well. We're here to introduce the Evanston Burger War, the first Evanston Burger War. Our job here is to have fun, to draw a little entrepreneurial spirit within the restaurants at Evanston, to have a burger war, to do just that, to have fun through that. Everybody's eligible for prizes for this. You cannot vote early. I don't know who was talking about voting early, but there's no voting early. Voting starts Wednesday, so the burger war starts on Wednesday. Special thanks to Leapfrog Online, one of our fast-growing companies here at Evanston, has created our website. The burgers that were provided tonight are from Panino's, the Little Island. Some people had never tried Little Island's burgers, and they're pretty good. And Willie's Food Court from Northwestern. There's also the Illinois Nut and Candy has provided some really awesome. So we're talking about creativity here as well. So everyone should take a look at that burger up there, that chocolate burger. It's pretty fascinating. So the Illinois Nut and Candy's been a member of ours for a long time. I just real quickly want to run down and ask for your help too. We're looking for more members to join the war. So I'm going to call out each alderperson and ask, Alderman Fisk, we'd love some help getting D&D dogs. Alderman Braithwaite, we need McDonald's or Burger King. All right. Alderman Wynn, we need help from the Firehouse, is it? And Crossroads. Alderman Wilson, we need Gigios. Apparently they have fresh patties that are awesome, but they're not signed up. Alderman Holmes, the Noy Street Cafe, we got to get them in. The burgers are apparently great there. Alderman Tendam, the Old Neighborhood Grill, and Rosie's, I think they have probably a veggie burger. All right. So if we want to, you don't have to do this, but if we can do this. Alderman Grover, Bluestone, Mustards. I mean, everyone's saying Mustards has to be in the game here, right? And Symphony. Alderman Rainey, you've got Bill's. And I called IHOP, and they claim they have the best burger in Evanston. I can't believe it myself. I'm going to try it out. But the person there working there told me IHOP has the best burger. So, and then there's McDonald's as well. Alderman Burris, you have Steak and Shake? Let's get it. All right, so any questions for the burger war folks here?
Your mother-in-law, the mayor, you need to wrap up your comments, please.
She can't help herself. She can't help herself. That's it. Thank you. The burger war begins on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, City Clerk, and City Manager, my name is Jan Halperin. I'm a director at the Evanston History Center, and I'm here today to speak in support of the Bed and Breakfast Ordinance 38012 on the agenda tonight. Our interest as the Evanston History Center is twofold. The first reason is largely cultural and historic, and the second reason is to add to Evanston's economy through the growing interest in cultural heritage tourism. One of the History Center's most successful programs is the Evanston Women's History Project, a collaborative effort to recognize the role women played in the history of Evanston. We've done several walking tours to illustrate the women's history in Evanston, and the former church home at 300 Church Street plays a significant role in that. Congresswoman Marguerite Stitt Church was an activist, a social reformer, politician, wife, and mother who lived in Evanston during great changes in the 20th century. When she became Congresswoman, she advocated for civil rights, women's rights, foreign policy, and economic recovery. She died in her home in 1990, I think. So people come to Evanston not just to visit the city, but also because they want to learn about the stories of these famous women and stay in historic homes like Mrs. Church's, who contributed so much to Evanston's history. The second reason we support the ordinance is the economic benefit bed and breakfast and historic preserved properties brings to Evanston. Cultural heritage tourism is on the rise in the United States. So people come not just to stay in Evanston, because they are seeking out experiences that are distinctive, not homogenized. The History Center has nearly 1,000 visitors on our historical Evanston walking tours each year, many of whom are from out of town. Not every community can have a successful cultural heritage tourism program. Communities that have lost too much of their heritage or haven't nurtured their cultural potential or may not have the resources it takes to develop a program will attract these visitors. We are so fortunate that preservation is a part of Evanston's history and heritage. We welcome the opportunity to partner with historic bed and breakfasts and open our doors to their guests and become a destination for heritage tourists from around the country and the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got to adjust him for the camera. Since the camera's there, we don't have one over here, so he's going to look this way to the camera. Tonight, I want to talk about the mid-year budget. It doesn't really deal with the complete picture. I think salary increases are in there, but clearly they could be higher. I noticed again the city's in trouble with waste and sanitation to the tune of $1 million in the red. Just over a year or two ago, we had a $1.4 million problem here. Now we're adding to it again, it looks like. Another interesting item in this mid-year budget is the city's underspending of capital. Spending $4 million to date on a $40 million capital plan is real interesting when you're halfway through the year. It shows very serious problems, and I think with the mismanagement of the program. There was a recent piece by the budget director that this city, basically a PR speech piece, but really what's been allowed here recently, there was an ordinance passed that really allows the city manager to move the funds around, which I found very interesting. It's a shell game. It's really, I'm going to skip some things for time. It's really interesting tonight. We have a $2.2 million line of credit being borrowed from a bank to fund a TIF, basically, to take money to fund a TIF. Basically, it was a financial mess, and we're taking that money and we're going to borrow it against a bank rather than use TIF funds, which certain aldermen claimed this is the only reason they would vote for this. That is financial suicide. In the last meeting, even more ridiculous things. We gave $35,000 to a business as a grant, free money, but we're going to sell a park because we don't have enough money. And I'll just close with this final comment. And don't smile, because we are going to sell parkland. We're going to lease it in a 99-year deal or something, and so we're going to sell it. The only thing I'm going to say in closing is last year you did not tell us what the effective tax increase was. You hid it from the public. And frankly, there's no that's a phony budget deal as far as I'm concerned. It's time council, on day one of the budget hearings, you tell us the effective tax rate. Not hide it like you did last year. It was 8% effective tax rate, 5% property, and 3% other things. You hit it last year, and you hit it throughout the budget. So let's hear it this year, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. You would get the impression from some ordinances and discussion that Evanston is a place where it's unsafe to be a pedestrian or where traffic is sped up. That's untrue. Over the past 10 to 20 years, we've clogged our streets and reduced average vehicle transportation speed to 10 to 15 miles an hour or less, and we've increased travel times because of the addition of hundreds, if not thousands, of traffic controls and signs, most of which were unwarranted. These traffic control decisions are in most cases initiated by small groups of people, well-meaning, but they impact thousands of other people a day who are not usually consulted. And because no one wants to be seen as anti-safety and no one wants to be seen as pro-mayhem, there's a systemic bias towards ever-increasing additional controls. The cumulative effect of that is unhealthy for our environment, unhealthy for our economy, and unhealthy for safety, including pedestrian safety. Environmentally, the most inefficient vehicle is one that is standing still, idling, getting 0 miles per gallon. The second most inefficient one is one that's constantly having to accelerate from a stop. From a safety standpoint, the most dangerous speed other than highway speed is between 0 and 10 miles per hour. Stopping and starting produces pollution and carbon, and it also produces driver frustration, a false sense of security for pedestrians, danger, and unpredictability. And economically, uncalculated millions of dollars of additional lost time are spent in traffic. Evanston has a grid system that, if allowed to operate as designed, absorbs traffic and allows for secondary and tertiary arteries to absorb excess from the main arteries, which should have higher speed limits and fewer stops than side streets. When you clog those arteries and make the secondary and third level streets impassable and dysfunctional, you take away that benefit of design. What's safe and environmentally sound is regular, smooth flowing, predictable traffic with places that pedestrians know they can cross safely if they simply wait. An excess of traffic controls produces the perverse consequence that more traffic controls are ignored by drivers, and drivers go faster in between those more frequent stops. The ad hoc decision-making about traffic controls needs to stop. We need to zero-base our traffic system, start over with the idea of reducing the number of controls, and have Evanston as a place where you not only can park, but where you can also drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Frank Cicero, Gay Riseborough. George, I apologize for your last name, George, at 404 Church Street, and David Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Should I proceed?
Yes, please.
I'm Frank Cicero, 222 Lake Street here in Evanston. Madam Mayor and City Council, I know you've put in many hours, and others have as well, on the B&B ordinance. There's one specific point I want to deal with here tonight, however, and that is, I think, an important one relating to ownership. The intent of the ordinance is clearly that a B&B can only be owned and operated by an individual or family who live in the dwelling as their primary residence and who cannot own and occupy more than one B&B. That intent is accomplished in Section K1 if the ownership is personal and by the primary residence and the 50% ownership requirements. That intent can easily be evaded, however, under the LLC provision as drafted in subsection K2. A person or a trust fund or a university, for example, can own a very small percentage, say 1%, of a B&B, and can be the manager of the B&B with absolute control over all of the B&B's operations. He can determine the policies, the operations, and so on of that B&B. I've spent over 40 years litigating issues like this involving trusts and involving corporations, limited liability corporations. Under this provision, a person or trust could have residents in place in numerous B&Bs who own a 50% nominal ownership. They would not necessarily have had to pay 50% of the capital. B&Bs are very flexible as far as the kinds of operations and management that an operator can make. But those people would not have any control over operations unless they were the operator. This does not prevent a person from being an operator of numerous B&Bs with numerous 50% owners, so-called, who are in place. The LLC ownership provision should not be approved as written. It should be redrafted to state clearly that no person can have an ownership or controlling interest in more than one B&B. And I think one thing is very clear. If you leave it the way it is, you are making a choice. Because on the personal side, you are making it very clear that a person can only own one B&B. On the LLC side, however, leaving it as it is means the intent and means clearly interpreting the ordinance that a manager can control many B&Bs as long as he is the operator and manager. I think that's wrong, and I think that should be corrected. Madam, may I hand up a memo that summarizes?
Yes, please do.
Memorializing my remarks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Gay.
I have a prop too. This is my grandmother park hat. I'm Gay Riceboro, 1801 Crane Street, and I'm president of Grandmother Park Initiative, and I've come just to give you an update. We've raised $170,000 so far, and we have $80,000 to go in the next 10 and a half months. And I thought that might make you all feel good about
It does, thank you.
about voting for us back 2 years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm George Simon, and I'm sorry I'm left-handed, and the pen was in a place I couldn't write my name real well. So it's an incapacity. I wanted to talk to you about the B&B ordinance, and in some respects, what I wanted to say was very similar to what the gentleman who spoke just before this last lady. I'm a lawyer, and what lawyers do is figure out ways around statutes. That's what we do for a living. And this one is easy because the LLC structure is such that you can create nominal interests in a property, in an LLC, 51%, where the person owns 51% but has no economic interest in the LLC. And it's very simple to do. You take out expenses, you can do it in lots of different ways. And this ordinance, the way it's drafted, is almost designed to be circumvented, to permit one person to control multiple B&Bs. I've looked at the B&B ordinances in a number of jurisdictions, and there's not one that permits LLC ownership in this way. This was done to accommodate a person who wants to expand, to buy B&Bs, to buy homes, to convert them to B&Bs explicitly for that purpose. That's contrary to what this whole thing is about. Owning a B&B is supposed to be an appurtenance to owning your home. This is a business that this person wants to create in Evanston, and I'm not against B&Bs. I'm just against circumventing the law as you all intended it to be. And this law with the LLC provisions in it is a big target to say you can circumvent this thing. So please redraft it. I haven't seen the memo that this gentleman wrote, but his point of view is almost identical to mine. So really do please rethink that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is David Reynolds. I live at 204 Davis Street. And as you consider the B&B ordinance this evening, please keep in mind the integrity of neighborhoods. Neighborhoods and their adjacent commercial areas are where much of the lives of our families takes place. Having been fortunate enough to be in the same neighborhood for 35 years, we treasure the long-term friendships that are a result of houses full of families. Introducing commercial ventures into residential neighborhoods does alter the fabric. I hope that the B&B ordinance you pass tonight respects the residential integrity of our neighborhoods by ensuring the following: that B&Bs are adequately separated to prevent their congregating in any single neighborhood. My sense is that B&Bs pose issues similar to those of group homes and thus should use the same separation standard, which is 900 feet. On Evanston's longer blocks, that would limit B&Bs to one per block. That special events are very limited. Renting out a facility for a party in a residential neighborhood is really not appropriate. While it will benefit the owner of the B&B financially, the price will be paid by the neighbors. That parking, as required by the ordinance, should be accommodated on-site or through the use of leased off-street spaces. To my knowledge, parking required by the zoning ordinance for any venture cannot be fulfilled on the street. It is neither appropriate nor consistent to allow a B&B to fulfill its parking requirement on the street. And finally, Mr. Simon and Mr. Cicero have more than adequately talked about my last point, which is ownership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Jean Lindwall, Linda Cooper, Armin Manasian, and Alice Eagley.
Hi, Jean Lindwall, 625 Library Place. I just got back from a trip to Ireland and encountered dozens of B&Bs identified with signage and parking in the front yard. I've had wonderful experiences staying in B&Bs, including one in Detroit comprised of multiple houses on a single block with breakfast served in the main house. While the accommodations were lovely, the guest parking in the side yards gave the block a decidedly institutional feel. A B&B is a commercial use in a single-family neighborhood. The only differences between a B&B and the recent phenomena of people renting out vacant houses or apartments for overnight stays are that with a B&B, there is presumably a real owner living there, and breakfast is being served to guests. I support requiring off-street parking for guests, the proposed distancing requirement, and limitation on special events. The lakefront isn't the only place in Evanston where a B&B might be proposed. Even though a B&B is a special use and the merits of each application will be considered on an individual basis, I think that it is important to establish minimum standards so that as applications are considered, they are considered on a consistent basis. I think that the guidance contained in the proposed B&B ordinance will be helpful to both the Zoning Board of Appeals and the City Council as they consider the merits of future special use requests. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Linda Cooper. I live at 420 Church, and I was thinking about the amount of time that we've spent on the whole parking issue, and we have not addressed at all the employees of this B&B, the vendors of it, the guests coming, and should they be allowed to park in the immediate area when the guests, I mean, it seems like, you know, if you're really going to take a look at it, you know, it's kind of what is fair. But we haven't thought about the employees and the vendors, at least to my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Madam Mayor, Council, I'm Armin Manassian. I live and work in Evanston. Actually, I was born and raised here. And I'm here tonight to urge the City Council to vote against the pending B&B ordinance. I have no financial interest in this property, but I feel strongly enough to come here this evening and bring up a few points. First, I'd like to address the noise and parking issues. My family and I lived at 1622 Forest for nearly 30 years. It's a very private property and more than sufficiently isolated from the other homes. I raised 7 very active children in that house, and in their teenage years, between them and their friends, there was always activity, noise, cars coming and going, friends, loud music, parties, outside parties, even 2 a.m. basketball games with loud music outside. Never once in 30 years was there a complaint from the city or from the neighbors about the noise. I can't imagine a B&B ever having that kind of activity or noise or traffic or that many people in the house at one time. As far as the house, it was for sale for 3.5 years. Even though people love the house, the necessary renovations, as so many of these homes have, stopped them from buying it. I look at the home of the owner, the proposed owner of the B&B, and I see a perfectly restored property. And I believe they will restore this home to what's appropriate for a property of its stature. I'm sure it will surely improve the lakefront and the property values in the neighborhood. I also believe it will be good for Evanston and the business, for their guests to be spending money going to restaurants. So again, I urge you to vote against the pending ordinance.
Thank you. Come on. Yes.
Greetings to you all. My name is Alice Egley. I live at 324 Davis Street. So I would like to urge the council to keep in mind that there are a couple of considerations here. B&Bs are great. I often stay in them in other communities. I love them. And I think people should come to Evanston to stay in B&Bs. They're wonderful. But we also have the matter of the R1 residential neighborhoods. I live in the one where we already have the one B&B approved. And so there are cross purposes here that you need to keep in mind. So let me read you the ordinance. I'm sure you're very familiar with it and don't need it read, but I'll read it anyway. R1 Single Family Residential District. The R1 Single Family Residential District is intended to provide for single family development development at the lowest density within the city. The lowest density within the city. So I think that calls for separating our B&Bs and distributing them around the city, and not placing them or allowing them in one particular neighborhood to be concentrated, because then the notion of the R1 neighborhood is lost, right? It's the highest, it's a high-density area. So I would urge you in particular to have a substantial distance requirement separating B&Bs, so we wouldn't have them lined up. In fact, we would not have them lined up on the lakefront. Any area near the university is going to be vulnerable to this kind of development because the university gets a lot of visitors. So Orrington has a lot of lovely old homes, and we could have the B&Bs lined up there. So I think those of us who live in these neighborhoods would like to still continue to live in a single-family neighborhood with, a B&B maybe here and there. But I think they should go in all neighborhoods. We have beautiful large homes in many neighborhoods. Let the B&Bs be distributed around the city in the various historical areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Priscilla Giles, Padma Rayo, B.K. Rayo, and Betty Esther.
My name is Priscilla Giles, and I live at 1829 Ashland. I'd like to thank the City of Evanston for the race dialogue on Thursday. I think that it was an opportunity to open the boil of racism before it burst. I have some pictures here for another subject. The faces are covered intentionally. I'd like to know why it's necessary to lease a computer lab at the main library. And don't we already have enough libraries? Are we spending more money for that? And we were told that we had run out of money to replace the circle at Fleetwood Jourdain, yet we have money to replace the corner at Lake and Dodge, which makes it more difficult for people to cross, to turn the corner when they're waiting for a light, making a traffic jam. We've taken away the street parking on Dodge between Darrow and Dodge, and yet we don't have enough money to make a simple circle at Fleetwood Jourdain for the people that you see there in wheelchairs, on walkers, on canes. It's a long way from the door and from the street to the room that they use. I just think that the City of Evanston should be more thoughtful of the people who use that. They're not just seniors, but they're children also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Padma Rayo, 2246 Sherman. My comments were approved by my attorney. In my world travels, I saw both well-established democracies as well as evolving ones. Yet this council and its mayor are the only public officials I've seen who appear hell-bent on destroying an established democracy. Your mayor contradicts her own claim that she encourages different views from different people by attacking and trying to silence us during public comment. Your mayor claims that her deprivation of our First Amendment rights is supported by Perry Education Association v. Perry Local Educators Association, but nothing could be further from the truth. The Perry case dealt with access to a proprietary internal school mail system and had nothing to do with public comment at a council meeting. Perry does not in any way support your mayor's unconstitutional acts. But Vergara v. City of Waukegan deals directly with public comment at a council meeting, and Judge Shader condemned the mayor's content-based and speaker-based violation of First Amendment rights, holding both the mayor and the city liable in damages. You make your hatred against me and my mom obvious, such that you deprive us of even the meager few minutes allotted to each of us, no matter what we say. Whether your hatred is based on our ethnic background, religion, gender, or a combination, you wasted and still waste tax funds on your efforts to silence views that stem from a minority religious belief. I submit that the only civil rights case that the city can win is the one that you do not create. I urge taxpayers to read the order entered on June 28 in the federal case La Salvia v. City of Evanston, wherein the judge ordered the city to pay over $45,000 in legal fees in addition to the compensatory damages of $2,300 awarded by a jury against the city. I urge the taxpayers to check the docket for the federal case Davies v. City of Evanston, filed on July 24, which describes the cases involving civil rights. I submit that tax dollars should not be wasted to defend your abuse of minorities. History does not remember those who tried to silence Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and Aung San Suu Kyi. Those who stand for truth and democracy prevail, while those who stand in the way are cast aside in the dust of ignorance. We denounce your wrongdoing until you undo it. Protect the trees and pedestrians at Kendall. Protect the Kendall trees. See y'all next time.
Thank you.
Is the microphone on?
Yes, it is.
B.K. Rao, 2246 Sherman Avenue. My comments were approved by my attorney. Last week, I was interrupted by your mayor for talking about pedestrian safety, which was an agenda issue, and about trees. Since you brag about being a tree city USA, it is appropriate for me to talk about trees. Your mayor's excuses to turn off our microphones are increasingly ridiculous. I would classify such behavior as childish and unacceptable for a grown person. The thought process that is required of a grown person seems to have taken a prolonged hiatus. For grown-ups, I think it is important to realize that we are all equal to one another and we have obligations to fulfill. My daughter and I strongly believe that it is our obligation to our community to bring the wrong decisions made by this council to their attention. This council has an obligation to listen to our grievances, whether they involve tree protection, pedestrian safety, or any other concern. Your mayor overreaches her authority every time she tries to silence us. She not only fails in her obligations as a mayor, but acts like a dictator. I urge the mayor to control her fingers. I urge the council to correct its Kendall resolution and save the trees, yelling and screaming at taxpayers and name-calling by your person from the 8th Ward, as on June 11th,
the Kendall issue is not
does not solve
council.
the issues. I shall return.
Thank you.
My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I came tonight to speak on a thing that he was talking about, the bank that wanted to open up the place on Central Street, and the neighbors what they needed and stuff. And I was looking at it and said, wait a minute, I heard this conversation before. And this happened in 2005, and there was hopefully a resolution that happened and was made and voted on by the council people that was in office at that time, and it was called an overlay district. That overlay district, they told us, was something that would be used throughout the city, and what they have, and if it fitted in that overlay district, then that was proper. What the people was asking to build there fitted in what you told us in the 5th Ward was allowable in our ward. But then you told the people up there on Central Street, oh, we will take this back and let the resident talk about it.
And I looked at it, and the people here from the Fifth Ward said, what? Didn't they make that change? And then what Priscilla talked about that happened on 3rd with the dialogue of race. And I said, well, okay, we have a whole slew of race, people of race here. First, we have the human race that we all belong to, and then we have sub. We had the Caucasian, few blacks, few Hispanics, but there was one race that was missing that is prevalent here in this city, and that was the Asian race. So how can we have a dialogue on race when things are done on spotted publicity or trying to get people in? And that brings me to, why do the city feel that it's necessary to do spot ordinance for lots of things? You have one now, and I'm sure the young lady with the Citizen Band radio, it is a nuisance. It probably drives her crazy. But do we need to levy an ordinance or try to look at and see what is causing this to help her to find a way to minimize this?
Ms. Esther, I need you to wrap up, please.
Thank you. So, where once you said you would not do spot ordinance, now you're doing it again. So please do not do spot ordinance, but help these two families to find a mean and a mechanism, if it's just moving the antenna, to help them to live side by side instead of creating another ordinance that will sit there and do absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bonnie Wilson, Jean Lindwall, and I think it's Madeline Ducray.
Thank you, Mayor Tisdale. As Evanston's Township Assessor, I would like to give you all of you a update on the Evanston Township Assessor's Office and what we've done between June 30th and August 3rd, June 3rd and August 3rd of this year. The Evanston Township Assessor's Office facilitated property tax bill corrections for 128 taxpayers, amounting to $208,429. This total does not include the corrections for mistakes made by the county assessor for the 6,744 seniors who, like myself, automatically received a corrected tax bill. The fiscal year totals after 4 months is 159 taxpayers for corrections totaling $271,328. I would also like to announce that the Cook County Board of Review opened for appeals on August the 6th for the 2012 assessment appeals. The appeal closing date is September the 5th, and any change in assessments affects next year's second installment. Appeals can be made easily online by going to the cookcountyboardofreview.com, utilizing your PIN number, phone number, and your email address. But I encourage you to also call my office at 847-332-2465 to make an appointment to utilize our appeal services and help in finding comparable properties for your home. I feel that we can give you the comparables that are more appropriate for your property than you can find on the Cook County Board of Review's website. An outreach board, I also want to announce that an outreach Board of Review meeting with Commissioner Suffredin and the Board of Review and myself will be held at the Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center on August 27th at 7 o'clock p.m. I encourage all taxpayers to come and learn about how to appeal their assessments. I want to remind everyone that the Evanston Township Assessor's Office is your taxpayer advocate. Our services are provided by your property taxes. We work for you. We are open from 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and we're located at 846 Dodge, at the corner of Dodge and Main. Our phone number again is 847-332-2465. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Lindwall, 625 Library Place. I would like to thank you for keeping citizen comment at the beginning of council meetings. I think that it's important for you to hear what people have to say before voting on agenda items, and it is important to allow people to make statements on non-agenda items or make announcements on items of public interest while people are still watching at home. You have demonstrated considerable patience with individuals who have repeatedly engaged in council bashing. I would like to acknowledge your efforts, especially with respect to the individuals concerned with the Kendall trees and potential traffic on the 700 block of Colfax. The city attorney and mayor have done their best to explain that at this point there is no further action that the city council can take, even if it agreed with or even understood the actions the speaker taken with respect to the former Kendall property. I agree that it's time to move on to other issues. The Kendall property owners have chosen not to proceed with the previously approved plan development and the conditions attached, and have opted instead to subdivide the property. At this point, the county assessor has assigned new tax numbers and assessed the single-family lots. The standards, public notice, and approval process set forth in the zoning ordinance for plan developments and often cited by the speakers no longer apply. When I speak at citizen comment, I do my best to be judicious in my comments and respectful of your time. I encourage my fellow residents to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Madeline Ducree, Fifth Ward resident. I won't take much of your time tonight. I just need to comment on two things. Number one, I was at the Human Services meeting the other night, and I mentioned about the safety on Church Street in Dodge. And after talking with the director, I went and I observed for over an hour. And in that time, I noticed a lot of things, like I said, an accident waiting to happen. I think the city needs to have someone out there to observe early in the morning, like I did. Maybe they will see some of the things that I observed, and I did see a couple of almost accidents, especially when the bus takes a turn there on Church and Dodge and have to stop there for the riders, you know. So signs need to be changed or something, but I tell you, something definitely is going to happen there when the children come there, because they act like they have man-made bumpers on anyway, and that's teenagers. So that's something to take into consideration. The next thing is that I'd like to make a comment on the ordinance to take action tonight about the A19, ordinance 75-0-12. I also mentioned that at the Human Services meeting. I understand that you're going to consider safety first. Of course, safety comes first. But I also would like for the council members to think about people self-employed, trying to make a living, trying to survive out here in this economy. And I'm just going to wait and see what your action is tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes citizen comment. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda? Oh, we have special. Oh, wow. We do indeed. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we have two presentations this evening. The first is a report on the Water Conservation and Efficiency Plan. Catherine Hurley, our Sustainable Programs Coordinator, is here and will provide a little bit of background and introduce the speaker.
Good evening, everyone. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, City Manager Bobkowitz, and City Clerk Green. Catherine Hurley, Sustainable Programs Coordinator. I am very pleased to introduce Amy Talbot from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, who will be making a brief presentation tonight on the very new Evanston Water Conservation and Efficiency Plan. As you may recall, the city was awarded a Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning technical assistance grant for them to help us develop a water conservation and efficiency plan. The draft plan was developed over the last year and was issued for public comment in May, and tonight Amy will be here to present the final version. Following the presentation, Amy and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I'll introduce Amy Talbot.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Good?
Good.
Okay. So I've been working with Catherine this last year to go through the water conservation efficiency plan for Evanston. I just want to take a couple of minutes to go over the process, kind of give some context around the plan and how we came up with it, the recommendations, and also kind of the next steps that we're anticipating for the future. Can everyone see? Okay? Okay, here we go. So like Catherine said, we did, the City of Evanston got a grant through my work, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, as a result of a federal grant program called Sustainable Communities. And that basically provided staff time for the year for the program to develop the plan itself. This grant really kind of draws off of what city is already doing. We have a tap water campaign that's been an ongoing effort, as well as the climate action plan. So water conservation and reducing water use within the city is part of the climate action plan. So for the process itself, like I said, we started about a year ago. We first started looking at water use, how the city is using water, how the residents are using water, and what we'd like to look at for that. We also looked at best management practices. So we looked at things that were going on around the country, things that are going on in our region, and best management practices from current research. We also administered a residential survey that went out throughout the city to gather some opinions and current practices that residents are already doing and things that they would like to see the city do in the future. We also hosted 2 community meetings, one geared towards residents, the other towards the business community, to gather additional input for the plan recommendations. Additionally, the last thing we did was hold an environmental working group to gather some of the biggest environmental advocates within the city to gather their input on the recommendations and best management practices that should be included. So I'm going to go in a little bit more detail about some of the process. First, this is the water use for the city. As you can see, it drops continuously over the last couple of years. And this is the point within the climate action plan, there was a reduction target, and basically that has already been met with inactive conservation. When we looked at BMPs, we wanted to cover the gamut of BMPs, so we looked at infrastructure, indoor and outdoor water use, behavioral use such as lawn watering, but also fixtures such as high-efficiency toilets and faucets. So we wanted to make sure that we covered a lot of different opportunities for conservation. We also did the survey. One of the most interesting components of the survey results was we estimated that Evanston, the average person in Evanston, uses about 97 gallons per person per day. The results were showing that not only were people unaware of how much water they use, with a self-reporting anywhere from 5 gallons to 500 gallons per person, but also everyone thought they used less than average. So basically, people are unaware of how much water they use, but everyone thinks they use less than they don't know. So that's something easy, and that kind of leads us to our next point, which is we want to focus on education and outreach. So people need to be aware how much water they are using before they can conserve it. We also, in the plan, wanted to include things that were going to be cost-effective and community appropriate for Evanston in the situation that we're experiencing here. We also wanted to promote the value of tap water and our current infrastructure and the use of tap water versus bottled water. And the plan's recommendations are divided into long and short-term recommendations, so things that we can do in the near future and things that will be done later into the plan. So I'm just going to briefly go over all the plan recommendations. They are separated out by sectors. The first one here is the utility. The first recommendation is to enhance utility porting. I will say that Evanston's water department has one of the best reports that I've seen in the region thus far, with the data that is reported and available on the website. So I definitely give you congratulations for that. But we will also want to continue this kind of effort and add more to the website and more focused on conservation, as well as in the annual water quality report that's required to go out to the communities, and use that as an opportunity to continue what Evanston's already doing within the existing outlets. One of my personal favorites is enhancing the water bill. So if you take a look, this is the current water bill that Evanston residents receive. Two things I want you to notice here. On the left side there, you see the bar chart. That is historical use, so people know how well they're doing compared to how well they did last year. A couple improvements that we discovered during this planning process is that the bill usage is in cubic feet. We would like to change that to gallons. We feel that people can more easily understand how many gallons they're using as opposed to cubic feet. So that's something that could be taken care of relatively easy using the current software. The second thing is something that we call the comparative use, and that basically gives information on the water bill to let people know how well they're doing within their sector. So they get an idea, are they using more or less than their neighbor, just to give them kind of a roundabout idea of how much use they are using, to just give a little bit more context. Moving on to the city recommendations, the first one is incorporate sustainable water policies into department and operations. This is really infiltrating water policy throughout all the departments and seeing where opportunities lie. One example of this could be to audit municipal buildings to see where the water is being used and where savings could be achieved. The second is to develop a public information campaign. This is really already continuing things that we're doing here at the City of Evanston, but making a more formalized and comprehensive outreach program. And we've got a lot of examples and materials available to the city that can be used for this purpose. The last is really to promote tap water, and reduce bottled water. One way that we can do this is to provide reusable water bottle filling stations in the current water fountains within municipal buildings. So this is basically what they look like. They're dual purpose. Moving on to the residential recommendations. The first one is toilet efficiency. Toilets are the #1 use for indoor facilities, so we wanted to target as this for the indoor recommendation. There's a lot of older houses within Evanston, which I think is an asset to the community, but also typically those houses have older fixtures in them. By replacing them with newer ones, you can save up to 20% just alone with toilet use, and everyone's going to still need a toilet, so you can't really get around that. We also wanted to do something for outdoor water use. We have 3 basic recommendations for this. One is reducing water waste from overwatering. We want to teach people to limit it to 1 inch per week. The other is to change the landscape itself, which is including native plants and low water use plants. And the third one is to allow for alternative watering processes, which is basically providing rain barrels and cisterns. I know the Ecology Center already has an existing rain barrel program, so we'd like to continue those efforts with the city. Okay, the last sector is the business and institutional. We really want to focus here with the top 20 customers, so take a look, have the water department look at the top 20 customers, make personal phone calls to them, look at their historical water use, see any variations and changes, and work with them to identify opportunities to save water over time and become more efficient. The second one is really to engage businesses, local businesses, to not only be more efficient within their own operations. One example of this would be to use pre-rinse spray valves that are more efficient in business and food and beverage operations, but also to encourage customers while they're in the establishments to be more conservation-minded and efficient. One example that's already going on here, we'd like to see more of, is the Hilton provides these cards. Perhaps you've seen them in the hotels that you've stayed at. They invite guests that are staying for multi-nights to reuse their linens and give instructions on how to do that. That not only saves water, but it saves energy and also staff time and resources. So adding up anything that's being able to be calculated, we came up with a goal for 6% water reduction by 2020, which is about 159 million gallons spread over 8 years. I think this is a fairly decent and extinguishable goal. So next steps, what do we foresee in the future here? We would like to promote the plan at this upcoming Green Living Festival, September 29th. We are planning on having a table and having some giveaways and things for CMAP and Evanston staff to promote the plan. We again wanted to start with the water bill format. We think that's something that we can do using existing formats and just making a couple of tweaks here and there to provide more information to residents. And we'd like to start doing the water filling stations and getting that into municipal buildings and continuing to promote the reusable water bottles. So with that, I love to take any questions, Catherine and I.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you both for the report and the presentation. I did have a couple of questions. One was, it was interesting to discover in reading the report that our regulations on lawn watering during the watering season really come from the IEPA's regulations. That's what it sounded like from the report.
It's actually, it's from IDNR, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and that's for any community that's receiving Lake Michigan water. There's several conditions of permit, one of which is having some ordinance for lawn watering between a specific date time period.
That's where it comes from. I get questions about that. Yes. I know that when the university does the Dillo Day, they do have water bottle refilling stations now for the last 2 years, I think, but they rent them for that event. So there's a way to acquire these stations for regular use?
Well, one of the ideas was to have it actually within the municipal buildings, so having them be a component to the traditional water fountains. And then we are talking about, for public events, having kind of water bottle refilling stations there. I'm not sure, do you want to rent them, or I was going to leave that up for y'all to decide.
And I love the idea about including water usage in terms of gallons rather than cubic feet. How many gallons in a cubic foot?
Oh my gosh.
It was somewhere.
I know it's somewhere in there. I can't think of it on the top of my head.
Anyway. No, don't worry about it. I'll find it.
Okay.
And then
Dave will tell us.
That's 7.48.
Well, interesting.
Let's call it 8.
Yes,
call it 8.
All right, call it 8. And then the recommendation for a public information program, is there CMAP funding for something like that, or is the CMAP really for the study and the report? And
the CMAP for this round was just for the report. The grant is for planning purposes. We do have another round of the local planning assistance, local technical assistance, and that's where the funding came from. Y'all could apply again next year. Just closed for this year.
Okay.
One other thing related to that question is that having a plan is one of the most important ways that you can get funding, because you can point to the plan and say, we had this plan done and here's a recommendation, now we're applying for funding. So having this plan addressing lots of different areas will allow us to go out to other places besides CMAP funders who are specifically funding for education and information. So that will be one thing now. We can go to funders and say, here are all the recommendations and the plan suggested going forward with this recommendation next, and then putting together a plan for that.
Because it seems to me that a public information program would be primed for, especially now that we've got the report and recommendation, primed for seeking grant to make that happen. And then my last question was as to adopting some features of the Model Water Conservation Ordinance. Would that be something, maybe this is for you, Ms. Hurley or Mr. Bobkos, would that be something that would come up through our Environment Board, their recommendations to the City Council, if the Environment Board decided that they wanted to take a look at a Model Water Conservation Ordinance or some features of it?
Madam Mayor, Alderman Grover, that or our Utilities Commission.
The Utilities Commission, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a fascinating report. I have a question to ask. In terms of, you were talking about what the average water usage is per person in Evanston. How does how does someone calculate that? Are you looking at your household bill and then dividing it by the numbers of members of your household? Is that what you're doing?
Well, specifically for the 97 number, we took, it's not exactly just residential use, it's basically the total water use for that year divided by the population, and that gives you a general number, so that includes a little bit of commercial use. Residential use is probably a little bit less than that, but usually when you look at gallons per capita per day, you're using the total water use. We could have, parsed out just the residential use, and I've done it from there. But, nationwide, it's about 100 gallons per day per person. And so Evanston is well below that number.
We're at 97.
You're at 97, but that's just total, that's total water use. That's not just residential use.
So how much further are we from a residential standpoint?
Did we figure that out? Yeah, you're probably close to like 60, 70.
Okay.
So you're like 30 gallons less per person than nationwide.
But there's a lot more room for improvement.
There is a lot more room for improvement. Let's say for Australia, they're at 46 gallons per person per day, and that's residential use. So there's always room for improvement. But I would say as far as the region goes and the nation, that Evanston is doing really well.
That's great.
And there's, I guess for your first question, there's a lot of calculator tools online that you can use. I'd be happy to send Catherine a couple of them, and we have some in the plan to help people calculate their own water use at home. And you can do it by the bill, but doing the calculators online show you specific items.
I think that's an excellent idea to offer to people so that they can calculate their own use. I also think it would be a great thing to share with the school districts, because that's the kind of thing that once you give kids a tool, they're better at it than we are for achieving some goals.
Definitely agree with that.
Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the report.
You're welcome.
A lot of interesting information in there. I think one of the things that we've learned over time on the council as we've discussed various environmental initiatives, including plastic bags, is that Evanston is really doing a much better job than a lot of other communities are doing. And that's because I think the people who live here are really committed to not only improving the environment, but understanding their personal responsibility. Where I have a little bit of trouble, I'm very big on outreach and education. Where I start to have trouble is when it translates into restrictions, or in the worst case, what kind of toilet can you buy or not buy. So that's where I want to draw the caution, is that I think we're all thrilled with what you have to say and very encouraged about the impact that your report is going to have. But down the road, it's easy to make that transition into, okay, well, now you can't buy bottled water in Evanston, or you have to have such and such a toilet, or you can only, so all of the ultimate restrictions that might be placed on a family's decisions to purchase hopefully will be taken care of by education and not by restrictive ordinances. So I just wanted to say that.
Right, that would be the ideal situation, for that to happen. And that's why we chose what we did to put in the plan, because these are some things we can start doing now. And if the city sees the need for an ordinance to use restrictions later because conditions are changing or something needs to happen, then you can use that as a tool. But as of right now, this is what we've got. So,
Alderman Rainey.
I just wanted to mention that one of the most popular features at Bike the Ridge last year was the water department's water bottle filling thing. It was like a trailer, and do we own that or did we rent it? But that was just really, really popular. I mean, I don't know, what was it?
Good evening, Dave Stomack, Utilities Director. It is a trailer that's made available through the Illinois Section American Waterworks Association.
That's what it was.
And we reserve it on particular weekends. We are looking at trying to create our own, if the fleet budget will allow.
Oh, that was extremely popular, and there were lines and people wanting to talk about it, and, you know, so I move that we put it in our budget.
Congratulations, Dave.
I'll let you get it.
Alderman Holmes.
Well, my question or comment was along the same lines, Alderman Rainey. The one thing that caught, well, a lot of things caught my eye in the report, but under the recommendations on the long term, when you talked about to explore the development of a mobile drinking water fountain for public events, and I just wanted, I thought that if I remembered last year was something there, and I was thinking it was along the same line. So is that what you're talking about when you talk about this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's what we're talking about. It's the good thing about doing stuff like that is it brings something that is not really seen, because, you know, water pipes are hidden, people just turn on the tap, it's there, but when you bring it out and display it to the public, they really get a sense of education and, you know, why things are important, and it's a tool to bring people together, but also to provide some education. So I'm not surprised that it's really popular, because it draws people in, and you know, that could be a really great component for the city to have on stock, so they can use it at all public events, just to get some more attention to the water system, the water infrastructure.
Right. My thinking was about the concerts in the park and that kind of thing, that this would be a wonderful thing to have.
Especially if you have popcorn, because you're going to need some water.
Thank you very much. I see no further questions, so thank you for an excellent report. Before the city manager has the next special item of business, I've been asked to ask you all about placing a referendum on the ballot as requested by Citizens United. They would ask Congress to pass a law saying that a corporation is not a person. To do this, we would have to schedule a special city council meeting no earlier than Wednesday and no later than next Monday in order, City Clerk, is that correct, to make the timing for the ballot. So I will be out of town, but I wanted to know, having been asked to do this, if anyone would be available or would want to do that. Alderman Burris.
And thank you, Mayor Tisdale, for bringing this forward for me. And I would definitely...
I will show for you whenever you ask.
Thank you. And I'm available, I think it would be a very short meeting.
Quick meeting, yes. It has to be no later than next Monday, and we can't have a meeting that isn't noticed appropriately, so it couldn't be until Wednesday. So you've got Wednesday, Thursday, or so I don't know if anyone can pull this together on this short notice. Sorry, Alderman Rainey.
Madam Mayor, to have a special meeting of the council, do we need a written request of a certain number of aldermen, or can the mayor just decree a special meeting? That's one question I have too.
I kind of like the idea the mayor can just decree it, but I don't really know.
I don't know. I think there's something about a written request. But the second thing before he answers is on Wednesday, I believe we have an economic development meeting where a whole bunch of aldermen sit on the committee, so we'd all be here anyway. The 22nd, yeah.
Too late.
Too late?
Get it on the ballot.
The 22nd?
No, the 22nd.
No, she said Wednesday and Thursday would be okay.
No, this coming Wednesday.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Grant Farr, Corporation Council. Council Rule 16.3 does speak for a call for a special meeting in writing. However, the oral statements made on the record tonight can certainly be followed up with a written call post haste. So I think that that would conform to the spirit and letter of Council Rule 16.3, unless there was an objection from any members on the podium tonight.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, this would be a referendum to be placed on the public ballot in the November election that is entirely consistent with the referendum that we passed as a statement of policy from the City Council within the last 6 months. Am I correct? That's what this seeks to accomplish?
Alderman Tandem?
I would be available to convene and support this.
Alderman Holmes?
I'm having a ward meeting on Thursday night. If you guys want to come over, we can do it then.
Can we do it there?
Sure.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be in the council chambers.
As long as it's 48 hours before.
All right, would a quorum be able to go?
7 a.m., 7 p.m.?
7
p.m. 7 a.m. Right before the ward meeting. How about right before the ward meeting?
7 a.m.?
No. 7 p.m. I'll order extra ice cream for you.
I can't promise.
We could do it at 6:30, 6 o'clock, whatever you say. I'm usually there by 6. So if you want to do 6:30,
Can you make
it's
it by
fine.
6:30?
And Alderman Braithwaite would be chairing the meeting as the mayor pro tem. Always.
All right, can we get a quorum for that? Alderman Burris, yes. Alderman Grover? Alderman Rainey, can? Okay. All right, Burris, Grover, Tandem, Alderman Holmes will be at her ward meeting, Alderman Nguyen, and Alderman Braithwaite. So that does it.
So that's 6 p.m. or 6:30?
6? I'll be there at 6.
Okay.
I'll call Fleetwood and make arrangements.
Could someone just announce where this is going to be and that there is an opportunity for citizen comment?
There will be an opportunity for citizen comment, and it will be at the Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center.
1655 Foster Street.
Okay.
At 6 o'clock.
Okay. Because the public really needs to know. I mean, this isn't a fun little social meeting of the city
Well,
council.
the public will have the final say because the public will vote on this.
Yeah, I know, but it's still a city council meeting.
Yeah, you're right. All right, so our city manager, do you have your next second quarter financial report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Lyons is here with that report. We're going to ask that the council receive the report as well as also approve the proposed budget calendar for the fiscal 2013 budget cycle. Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Manager Bobkowitz, Clerk Green. In a summary, through 6 months, the city is doing fairly well. Earlier tonight, we did a budget presentation on the form of our budget. Tonight is a little bit more about the execution of our budget. So far, we are executing our budget fairly well through 6 months, and I won't belabor the point and go through the report quickly and take questions at any time. We are, of course, at 50%, so our goal is to be right on 50%. Sometimes guys in my position would like to be over 50% for revenues, but that doesn't usually mean it's a great thing. That means we've collected more taxes than anticipated. I'm happy to be at 49.9% for the general fund. Not all revenues are received evenly throughout the year, but to be at this level is great news. It also, I need to, before I forget, put out a thank you to the county board chair for getting the county back on track for the distribution of revenues. When you look at our property tax revenues, we're right at 55%, and we were supposed to be at 55% was the levy of last year. That's supposed to be the first distribution, so it's very nice when it comes out exactly how it's supposed to. General fund expenditures are below budget fairly substantially at 5.3% below budget. However, that only includes 12 pay periods. So one pay period, as you noted tonight on the agenda, $2.3 million to $2.5 million. We were a little bit high in the middle of summer because of our seasonal payroll, but you get the idea if that we take out the $2.3 million for the payroll, and we also have to look at, and I'll discuss it a little bit later as well, we will be just putting in our retroactive pay for bargaining unit settlements as those come through. We're really going to be running about $1 million to $1.5 million to the good through 6 months, and we'll go into that detail a little bit more. As I noted before, property taxes at 55.7. Sales taxes, while this would be very concerning, we always end up with more sales taxes for the month of December and August. Both the back-to-school sales tax and the holiday season sales tax are our biggest months, so we will watch that one very closely. Income tax, this is also not that surprising. The April distribution for the collection month in April, when we have it distributed, is we've already received that, so being at 61% is very good news. And we're also, as I'll relate in a little bit, the state is back to being on time for the income tax distribution. So one note, we've had very good real estate transfer taxes in just the last few months. You get those monthly, so that was a revenue source. We raised it during the budget season, and we're still managing to meet that goal at 54% through 6 months. I have already hit that one. I noticed the property tax, the transfer tax already. And while there is that 1 month delay in income tax, that's where they're supposed to be. And I already noted the sales tax. So on the expense side, as you can see, the 44.7%, most departments are moving right along at that 44.7%. Police and fire have tended to be right at their budgets each year, so they're being at 47.6 and 47.1% is not surprising. The other departments, for instance, administrative services, we have some more cyclical expenses. Parks and Recs also has their cyclical expenses. That's why they're at 40.3. They'll catch up a little bit with the seasonal expenses coming through in July and August. And as I noted before, the last bullet point on that page, again, if we were settling at approximately 2%, and that's where we'll be close to on the labor settlements for the year, then we'd be looking at an additional $1 million to this report. We'd be adding about half that amount to the report through today's date because it would be retroactive. We've discussed that one. And just to give it to you graphically, where we are at, by the numbers, right out of the system, $4.3 million, but then adding back in the general fund portion of payroll and the retro pay, you see we're at about $1.5 million as far as a year-to-date revenues over expenses. Would not call it necessarily a surplus at this point because we do have timing variations throughout the year. So that's the general fund in a nutshell. That's not the only part of our funds, obviously. Our parking, water, sewer, and solid waste funds, our enterprise funds, do make up a lot of the activity and services the city provides. Right now, the parking fund is operating close to budget on revenue, but the expenses are lagging behind. Part of that is we have a very large debt service payment that's paid out of the parking fund for the Sherman Avenue deck. The water fund, right now through June 30th, not a lot of the high utilization. So the high usage that we had in June won't have shown up in revenues or in expenses necessarily at this point for water or for sewer. And in the case of water and sewer, both had bond proceeds that they expected, as well as projects associated with those bond proceeds, or in the case of sewer, the payment of the refinanced IEPA debt. So those activities haven't happened yet, and that's why you're seeing the water and sewer fund fairly below a 50% level at this point. The solid waste fund, we budgeted this fund at a $170,000 deficit, and so while it's still in a deficit, year-to-date it's running a $250,000 surplus, so that's an approximate $400,000 to the good year-to-date in the solid waste fund.
Lyons, could you repeat? There's been some question about the health of the solid waste fund. Could you perhaps repeat? what you just said.
The solid waste fund is still running a deficit overall. When it was set up, it has $1 million deficit in fund balance. Actually, it was $1.4 million. And right now, that deficit, if we close the year this year, that deficit would have shrunk by $250,000. And we have yet to incur the yard waste fees for the fall season and the yard waste costs. So both revenues and expenses should climb in the solid waste fund for the fall season. But I did take a look at the actual revenues and expenses. Recycling was below, and we had a nice discussion just before me on this about conservation. In this regard, our overall recycling costs to date are lower than anticipated, and so are our revenues thereof. So while we'd like to see our recycling waste stream go up, our costs are also down associated with the recycling, and it's not translating into a higher cost for actual refuse in that waste stream. We're not seeing that shift or any, there's no reason to be alarmed by our lower recycling. It's not being offset by higher regular refuse. They're both a little bit lower than anticipated through 6 months. Again, this is a one-year-old fund, so we're continuing to ferret out all of the issues associated with our costs, but that's still good news through 6 months that it's holding its own and then some. I think I've hit all of these. Solid waste, yes. So looking, the other comment that was made earlier
Excuse
tonight,
me, Mr. Lyons, Alderman Rainey has a question.
You made a comment about the Sherman Avenue garage and the parking fund paying the debt service. I thought that was, don't we pay that out of the TIF?
And due to the fact that the garage is actually owned by the parking fund as an enterprise fund, we send the $3.5 million out of the Washington National TIF into the parking fund and then out to the bondholders. The earlier comment about the capital projects fund being behind, that if you were looking at just checks cut by June 30th, that would be the case. But as the council can take a look back at your agenda over the last 3 months, we've had an awful lot of projects coming through on the council's agenda, and I anticipate this catching up substantially. Brandon, in the report, do we have the estimate in the report? Do you have perhaps the page number? I don't know if I have that handy, but we're projecting that of the $40 million capital fund, will come in somewhere around $30 million in total expenses, and part of the reason that we're not going all the way up to $40 million is carryovers, where some of the projects are going to flow into next year, but in other cases it's grants not received, and some of our projects were contingent upon grants not received. Yeah? So in page 116 of your packet is a summary. It's 116 of 60, where we note that just under $29 million is what we anticipate the final expense being, with just under $10 million being the amount carried over. And that means that we're going to have $1 to $2 million of grants or other revenues, et cetera, projects that aren't going to be done. Now, they may be rebudgeted in the next capital year as a new expense, but they're not, the departments are not asking to carry the project forward due to timing differences. So it's not new money, it's just wanting to make sure that we explain to both the public and the council when the funds are being expended, not just getting the original approval. So we've kept this slide fairly constant over the last 2 years. We still, in a nutshell, we'll still be watching what the state does, but our income tax is actually, we're watching it, but it's in good shape. The property tax, we may be watching it as well, but we have the distribution, and the second installment's supposed to be on time, so that will help our cash flow tremendously. It's also had a nice side effect for the library fund. We weren't sure whether the library fund would be in a deficit situation at all during the year, because they didn't start off with any fund balance. But because all the property taxes came in earlier than we've had them in the last 5 years, the library fund has been able to operate in the black the entire year. The sewer fund revenue, where we say continued lower volume, well, we know that that's one that we've had an issue long-term, but when we do the third quarter report, we'll be showing that one will go away, and we will show higher volume than budgeted for the third quarter report for the sewer fund. At that point in time, we'll have all of our summer revenues in, so that number should be on its way to being above budget. Building and other permit revenues, we have two major building projects going on the Northwestern campus, and we were close to budget without those major one-time permits. So again, I stress the word one-time. So we have some one-time revenue that will help with the general fund reserves, but we're not really taking them into account when we're trying to determine our year-over-year operating revenues compared to expenses. And on the expense side, we are still, as I noted on the expense detail, we're running very well so far, but we will have our seasonal costs, and we will also have the retroactive payment for all of our bargaining contracts.
Mr. Lyons, Alderman Rainey has another question.
Well, I don't have a question. I just really object to when the city is doing well and there are construction projects going on. And over the last 20 years, I would say the bulk of the permanent revenue is from big projects that make the city what it is. I mean, we've built, everything from the theaters to hotels, et cetera, in addition to renovations. Right now, you mentioned the Northwestern projects, but right now we have two huge private projects going on. We have the focus on Ridge Avenue. We have the Amley project. We have all sorts of renovations going on. We have the school over on Ridge. There's a lot going on. I just really object when we single out these things and say they're one-time revenue. If things are good, they're ongoing. It's an ongoing revenue stream. So, and I've even heard some members of the council say, oh, we can't spend that because it's one-time revenue. It's not one-time. It's part of what makes our general fund what it is. And so, I think that it's exactly the kind of thing we ought to look at to determine the health of the city. When we have good not property tax, but transfer tax revenue and good permit revenue, I think we need to really stand back and say things aren't as bad as some people would say they are. So I just always cringe when you say that it's one-time revenue, because it's one-time revenue this month, it's another time revenue next month, and if things are good, it's an ongoing stream. And people are working on their homes, and so there are small permit fees and big permit fees. And I think it just, when I drive around the city and I see the cranes in the air, it just makes me feel so good, because we didn't see those for several years, and now we're seeing them again. So I think we ought to really be very proud of the permit fees that we're generating.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
Not isolate them as something unusual. I think we can rely on them when times are not, it's not 2008 anymore.
Go ahead, Mr. Lyons. Thank you.
Thank you. And that leads into the next several bullet points under expenses, just that we still have a very active risk management situation in the city. We know that we have some pending claims when we look at our our insurance fund budget. So those are things to continue to watch as we do look. For this past year, we did look at doing additional capital projects because we had a budget that was in the black. And there will be, there will always be those kinds of expenses that we can look to try and support, whether it's our insurance fund, trying to bolster that, our pension funds, our capital funds, with the fact that our departments did a good job of staying within budget, which so far they've been doing this year, and the fact that we have had a very strong, I'd say the Evanston economy is doing better than the total, the state economy.
Alderman Rainey has another comment.
On the risk management issue, in the past, we have told our residents, the taxpayers, that we have huge outstanding liabilities with lawsuits. Right now, we don't have those forbidding multi-million-dollar lawsuits hanging over our heads. Isn't that true?
That is correct. At one point, I know that we bonded for a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And so our combined total claims payable in that fund is $4 million approximately. And that's, I don't think there's a single $1 million, yeah, there's not a $1 million one in there. It's a lot of small ones, or smaller claims at this point. So I think we've really hit on all of these. I'll just show that, go to that last bullet point, that barring unforeseen circumstances with the state where there's any kind of a run on the income tax or any other changes to the economy, we see things as being fairly stable. That's as optimistic as I can get. Stable is where I think that, the city is, and that's, to your point, Alderman Rainey, that's a lot better than where we were in 08-09.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you.
And then lastly, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we have for you the budget calendar for the coming budget cycle. Brandon, do you have that on a slide?
It's in the packet.
On page 117 of the packet.
Do you mind when I'm like on this one?
As Mr. Lyons indicated, we're feeling pretty optimistic about a stable budget, and so we are not anticipating to come to you with significant staff and program reductions, nor are we anticipating coming to you with significant changes to the mix of taxes. So this proposed calendar is a much pared down calendar than you have seen the last several years. If you'll notice that the first item is the Tuesday, September 18th council meeting, and I think it's important to point out because of the Jewish holidays, there will not be a meeting on the 17th, so the council previously had agreed to meet on the 18th, so we're proposing that meeting be a city council goal-setting session, the pre-budget announcement, citizen budget workshop. Rather than multiple dates, we're proposing one date for Wednesday, September the 19th. The budget would be presented to the council on Friday, October the 12th. The first city council budget discussion would be on a fifth Monday, which is Monday, October 29th. Then a special council meeting on the 10th of November, which would also be the public hearing on the budget. An optional council meeting for Tuesday, November 13th, and then we would look for budget adoption at your regular meeting on the 19th of November with the tax levy adoption, the tax levy abatement Monday, December the 10th. So if that calendar works for the council, we would ask for a motion to adopt the calendar, and we will move forward with the appropriate public notifications, public invitations to get input during the month of September prior to having the budget issued on October the 12th.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Friday, October 12th presentation of the proposed budget to the council on that Friday is transmission of the budget to the council.
That is
There's no
correct.
formal meeting you're asking for.
That is correct. It would be our anticipation that the document would be transmitted to you without meeting on that Friday,
All right.
as has been past practice.
All right. I move approval of the proposed city council budget calendar for fiscal year 2013.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed city council budget calendar for fiscal year 2013. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Madam Mayor, that concludes our budget presentation.
Thank you. Now, Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda, please? No, we're not doing badly.
We're doing great. All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. The consent agenda is as follows. We request approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting, July 23, the special council meeting of August 6. The Administration and Public Works Committee met this evening, and we request your approval of the payroll through July 15 in the amount of $2,881,632.24. The payroll through the 29th of July, $2,809,797.48. The City of Evanston bills through August 14 in the amount of $6,820,727.71. The City of Evanston credit card activity ending June 30th in the amount of $140,652.53. We request your approval also to authorize the city manager to execute a contract for comprehensive signage design program to Urban Works in the amount of $52,270. Funding is from the Parking Fund, West End TIF, and the Neighborhood Parking Identification from the CDBG Fund. We request your approval also of a one-year contract extension for the purchase of up to 7,000 tons of rock salt from Morton Salt for the 2011-12 winter, totaling $424,270. We ask your approval also to recommend the award of the 2012 additional street resurfacing contract to Chicagoland Paving in the amount of $689,606.44. Your approval is also requested for a contract award to Jaysco Electric Corporation for the Lorraine H. Morton Civic Center parking lot lighting replacement project, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract in the amount of $208,669. Approval is also requested for the contract award to authorize the city manager to execute the contract for professional architectural engineering services for the 2013 Noise Cultural Arts Center chimney and roof project to Altus Works in the amount of $70,840. Approval is requested also for the city manager to execute a contract for asbestos abatement Phase 3 at the Evanston Water Utility with Midway Contracting Group in the amount of $39,000. We ask your approval also to authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the Cured in Place Pipe Lining Contract B in the amount of $202,779. We ask your approval, and staff recommends that the city manager be authorized to sign an agreement with the First Bank and Trust to have access to a line of credit up to a total amount of $2.2 million for use in the Howard Ridge and West Evanston TIF districts. The staff and committee request your approval to consider a first-time application for a sidewalk cafe permit for the Alcove, a Type 1 restaurant at 512 Main Street. We ask for approval also for Resolution 56R12, which authorizes the manager to sign a lease agreement with National Able Network for the lease of a computer lab in the main library, July 1 through the 31st of December 2012, with an option to extend, and leased at a rental rate of $8,800 for the initial term. We ask your approval also for Resolution 60R12, an amendment which is an amendment to the service agreement between the City of Evanston Community Media Center, extending the terms and conditions of the previous service agreement through December 31, 2012. Resolution 61R12, authorizing a 3-year extension of a license to Comcast, allowing maintenance of a building and fence in the public right-of-way in James Park. Next is Ordinance 58012, which is for introduction. We ask your approval to introduce Ordinance 58012, proposing approval of a redevelopment plan and project, adopting tax increment allocation financing, and convening a joint review board and calling a public hearing regarding the proposed Chicago, Maine redevelopment area. Adoption of this ordinance will initiate the public hearing process for the designation of the Chicago, Maine tax increment financing district. Next, we ask your approval to introduce Ordinance 78012, which authorizes the sale of various vehicles and equipment owned by the city through public auction. In most cases, these replacements have already been ordered and approved by the council. This is for introduction. Next, we recommend adoption of introduction of Ordinance 79012, which amends the City of Evanston Code to decrease the number of Class B liquor licenses from 17 to 16 due to the end of alcohol sales at Golden Olympic Restaurant, 1608 Chicago Avenue. Next is Ordinance 80012, which recommends the adoption of 80012, which amends the city code to decrease the number of Class C liquor licenses from 31 to 30 due to the closure of Geo Restaurant, 1631 Chicago Avenue. Madam Mayor, I'm also going to move to suspend the rules on this matter, and action will be addressed by the committee chair, because the restaurant is already closed, and I'll do the same thing for the next one. This is an ordinance, introduction of an ordinance that recommends amending the city code to decrease the number of Class C licenses from 30 to 29 due to the closure of Austin Tacos 622 Davis Street. Madam Mayor, I also move suspension of the rules on this matter. Action will be taken by the committee chair. Next, the committee recommends adoption of Ordinance 82012, which amends the city code to make Forest Avenue a one-way south from Lee to Main Street during Lincoln School drop-off and pickup, but
Arrival dismissal.
Arrival and dismissal. Let's see, arrival and dismissal. Okay. This is for introduction, and Madam Mayor, I'm also moving to suspend the rules on this, and action will be taken by the committee chair. Next, council adoption of Ordinance 83012, which amends the city code to establish a four-way stop at Michigan Avenue and Lee Street. I move introduction, and I also move suspension of the rules on this matter as well. Ordinance 85012 amends Section 1 to reduce speed limits on Chicago Avenue and Central Street. We move to establish a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Chicago Avenue from Dempster Street to South Boulevard, and on Central Street from McDaniel Avenue to Central Park. I move introduction and suspension of the rules also. The committee chair will address action on this matter. Next, I move adoption of the proposed ordinance 86012, whereby council would amend Schedule 1 of the City Code to establish a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Oakton Avenue from Chicago Avenue to the city limits. Move introduction and also move to suspend the rules on this matter. Ordinance 73012. City Council is asked to approve this ordinance, which amends portion of the City Code, Section 10, prohibited parking at certain times, to add at any time daily except Saturday, 4 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. and Sunday, Lake Street, South Side, Maple Avenue to Oak Street. This is for action. Next item is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair.
Excuse me, Alderman Braithwaite. Sorry. Go ahead, Alderman Rainey.
Okay. This has to do with the secondhand junk and antique dealers. It's off the consent agenda. Next item, I'm pretty certain is off the consent agenda, although nobody's asked. I'm pretty sharp on those things. Next item is under Human Services Committee. The Human Services Committee requests, the township assessor, the township supervisor recommends City Council approve the Township of Evanston bills, payroll, and medical payments for the month of July 2012 in the amount of $156,541.59. Next, the Harley Clark Mansion issue is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. Next, H3, Ordinance 28012, enacting a new Chapter 17 of Title IX of the City Code, prohibiting unauthorized operation of CB radio equipment. I'm going to move introduction of this matter. Next is under Economic Development.
Alderman Rainey, would you take that off,
I'm going to
please?
take that off, yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Resolution 57R12 is off the consent agenda, having to do with a grant agreement with Collabs. Next, O2, approval of a facade improvement grant to Manassian Rugs. This is a 50-50 grant in the amount of $3,960 as recommended by staff due to a change really in the condition of the awnings that we were presented with. Next is item 03. Economic Development Committee and staff recommend an extension of time to November 2 for Strange Lofts to complete their facade improvement plan. Next is 04, Economic Development Committee and staff recommend approval of financial assistance for facade improvement for Found Restaurant, 1631 Chicago Avenue on a 50-50 cost-sharing basis, not to exceed $8,520, contingent on approval of the owner of the property. Item 05, the Economic Development Committee and staff recommend approval of $65,564.90 in funding for a 12-month period commencing July 1 through June 30th, 2013 to the Chicago North Shore Convention and Visitors Bureau. Under appointments, the mayor recommends reappointment to the Board of Ethics of Mark Sheldon. Madam Mayor, this concludes the consent agenda, and I move approval.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0. The consent agenda passes. Alderman Grover, could we have Administration and Public Works, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. As to item A11, Ordinance 79012, having been introduced and the rules suspended, I move action and adoption of Ordinance 79012, amending subsection of the City Code to decrease the number of Class B liquor licenses from 17 to 16 due to the end of alcohol sales at Golden Olympic.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to to approve ordinance 79012, decreasing the number of Class B liquor licenses. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris. Aye. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor, as to Agenda Item A12, Ordinance 80-0-12, having been introduced and the rule suspended, I move adoption of Ordinance 80-0-12 to decrease the number of Class C liquor licenses from 31 to 30 due to the closure of Geo Restaurant at 1631 Chicago Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 80-012, decreasing the number of Class C liquor licenses. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
Thank you, Alderman Tindem. 9-0, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor, as to Agenda Item A13, Ordinance 81-0-12, having been introduced and the rule suspended, I move adoption of Ordinance 81-012, which amends subsection of the City Code to decrease the number of Class C liquor licenses from 30 to 29 due to the closure of Austin's Tacos at 622 Davis.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 81-012. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor, as to Agenda Item A14, Ordinance 82-012, having been introduced and the rules suspended, I move adoption of that ordinance amending the City Code to make Forest Avenue one-way south from Lee Street to Main Street during the Lincoln School arrival and dismissal times.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 82-012. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor, as to Agenda Item A15, Ordinance 83-012, having been introduced and the rules suspended, I move adoption of that ordinance to establish a four-way stop at Michigan Avenue and Lee Street.
Is there a second? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 83-012. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As to Agenda Item A16, Ordinance 85-012, having been introduced and the rules suspended, I move adoption of the proposed ordinance to amend our city code to establish a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Chicago Avenue from Dempster Street to South Boulevard and on Central Street from McDaniel to Central Park Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 85-012. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
And I believe, Madam Mayor, this is our last one for suspension. Item A17, Ordinance 86-012, having been introduced and the rules suspended, I move adoption of that proposed ordinance to establish a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Oakton Avenue from Chicago Avenue to the city limits.
Second.
It's been Alderman Fisk. Do you have a question?
Yeah, the question was, isn't it Oakton Street?
As opposed to Avenue?
I think so, isn't it?
Peaches, apples.
Then I'll amend my motion.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk.
I'll amend my motion to establish a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Oakton Street from Chicago Avenue to the city limits, Ordinance 86012.
Second.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 86012 as amended. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
And I believe, Madam Mayor, Agenda Item A19, Ordinance 75012, as to secondhand junk and antique dealers, I will move adoption of the ordinance. What want to talk about?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Grover?
First, a question. We got a draft of the ordinance. Perhaps it was the final version at our desk tonight. Am I correct that that's the final version of the ordinance? Just to clarify.
Madam Mayor, Clerk Green, members of the council, Grant for our Corporation Council, yes. With respect to the ordinance that was transmitted into the packet, it did not reflect the amendment relative to junk vehicle as opposed to junk wagon. Whatever ordinance is approved tonight, it will have junk vehicle pursuant to the amendment, not junk wagon. It was just a scrivener's error in the transmission to the packet.
All right. So my thinking on this is I will be voting against it because I think the issues that the ordinance is intended to address are parking issues, which we can do through parking regulation. I understand the interest in identifying who our junkers are and requiring them to be licensed as businesses, but I'm not sure whether or not that itself will squelch the business. I don't want to drive them out of town and would rather that they keep doing this valuable service for the city of Evanston. As to questions of whether they carry safe loads or the driver has insurance or vehicle insurance or driver's license, the Illinois State Code already addresses that and can be enforced in other ways. So that's why I'd be voting no on this.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I share equal concerns with Alderman Grover. My understanding of the ordinance, it was designed to address that, exactly the parking on the side streets and also the truckloads driving in our city streets. My concerns are basically this. I didn't receive a lot of complaints regarding this particular ordinance, but I do receive a lot of complaints regarding the water bill. And so my concern is that if we limit the number of, and I call them scavengers, not junk dealers, scavengers that go around and collecting in our back alleys, that we will see on the other side an increase for special pickups. And so I don't know, now is the time to make the motion, but I would like to hold it over, and my concerns that I would like to see addressed are the licensing fees, also the requirements for the bond and insurance. I'm a little bit confused about the plumbing and electrical fixtures. And then the only real part of the ordinance that addresses the parking is in Section C, number 5, and I have a question about enforcement. So am I just move to hold?
Yes, you can just move to hold.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to hold it. Are you holding it to a date certain, or are you just...
Until it gets fixed.
Till it gets fixed.
Until
That's
it
a
gets
date.
fixed.
I like that kind of date. All right. Does anyone else want to still comment on it? It's being held. All right. That concludes Administration and Public Works. Alderman Fisk, could you walk us through Planning and Development?
Yes, I will walk you through P1. It's Ordinance 38012, amending various portions of the City Code relating to bed and breakfast establishments. The Plan Commission recommends approval of Ordinance 38012, amending the zoning ordinance to modify the regulations concerning bed and breakfast establishments. During its meeting of May 14, 2012, the Planning and Development Committee requested that staff further research and clarify certain issues. This ordinance was held in committee on April 23rd and May 14th. At the June 18, 2012 City Council meeting, this ordinance was held for action until the July 9th meeting. On July 9th, it was continued until the meeting tonight. I move approval, but I also have some comments.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 38012. Seeing no lights.
No, I'm still talking.
Just go ahead and make your comments.
I'd like to propose the following amendment as referenced by two of the members of the public who spoke tonight to clarify in, I believe it was K2, section K2, that to state clearly that no person can have any ownership or controlling interest in more than one B&B. I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to amend the ordinance so that no one person can have control or ownership of more than one B&B. Alderman Rainey?
Mr. Farrar, can we also pass ordinances that say no one can own more than one pet store, more than one house, more than one retail shop, more than one dress store, more than one gas station, more than one fast food restaurant? I don't like the sound of that.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Grant for our Corporation Council. With respect to the issue, I think that there is one key distinction here in that a bed and breakfast would be a special use under the code. So in terms of the property issues invoked and the due process and any takings issues that could arise, that really sort of colors the issue that you just raised, Alderman Rainey. As I sit here tonight, equal protection and due process issues are pretty deep water, and I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to give a best guess answer that could contemplate every single eventuality that might occur.
Take off, too.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey, are you finished? Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, I would like to, if possible, amend Alderman or substitute. I'd like to have a substitute motion, which, if Alderman Fisk would permit that, if it be possible that we delete 6-4-7, subsection K, subsection 2. That's on page 442 of the packet. So the ownership is very clearly, of a bed and breakfast, is very clearly indicated as that the owner will reside in, and it will be their primary residence, and the owner will have legal or beneficial title interest in the subject property that exceeds 50%, period. I get a second.
Is that
Yes, second.
That's all right. It's been moved and seconded to amend the ordinance, and I'm not going to read all the subsections.
To delete K.
To delete K2, page 442. All right. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question was really about this amendment then, and the remarks from Mr. Cicero, Mr. Simon during citizen comment is whether how ownership works its way through an LLC of a B&B was discussed at the B&B committee at all, and did that bubble up, and did the committee, didn't realize how that might work itself out then? And okay. So tonight was kind of the first we've all heard of how the corporate ownership would work. My impression is that we were interested in preserving the option of a corporate ownership in LLC just because of the limited liability rather than purely private ownership. And so I'm not comfortable with that amendment. And there are a couple other provisions of the ordinance amendments as it's been presented or proposed to us tonight that I'm not comfortable yet enough to vote in favor of.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Alderman Grover, I think this concern grows out of the fact that we are introducing commercial uses into the most restrictive R1 residential zones. And because the residential zones, obviously you've heard time and again of the neighbors surrounding them, and I will say there was not one neighbor at any of our meetings that spoke in favor of the B&B. Or the B&B concept. I think people accept the idea of a B&B. They accept the idea of a reasonable distance between Bs and Bs. No more than one per block is something that they've come down on. The whole question of the LLC, though, is entirely different because it opens the door for the same corporate entity to own a number of Bs and Bs and to be running them again, as commercial uses in residential neighborhoods. And this is a concern throughout the First Ward. It's obviously a concern and a loophole, if you will, that you've heard people speak to tonight. When you have a managing partner in an LLC who is the owner-occupant of the bed and breakfast, who has almost no financial interest in the property itself, again, that raises issues and runs contrary to, I think, the original concept of a B&B, which is a live-in owner-operator. So the LLC question is a real serious concern and something that we should think about. It's obviously this is in the First Ward. It's going to be opened up into other wards. We will have to be addressing it, so it's a good time to be thinking about this now. But the LLC part of this is a major concern, and I think it's reasonable to reassure homeowners who have invested in our neighborhoods that there aren't going to be a proliferation of commercial guest hotels in R1 single-family neighborhoods, and this is the best way that I can see to do that.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen.
Well, Alderman Grover, you raise a very good point about having a corporate entity to shield the owner against huge liability. But I do think the concerns raised by the two attorneys who stepped forward on this issue, and it did not come up. I mean, we discussed something of it, but we didn't have a corporate litigator sitting on the B&B subcommittee. So we're delaying this again, but if there is a way in which this can be drafted, so LLCs are vessels, though, that's the problem. So we have to come up with something that achieves the goal here of a B&B being owned by someone whose primary residence it is, and they own 50% of the property, and not have the situation as described by Mr. Cicero or Mr. Simon, because that really defeats what I think all of us have intended here. And so I'd like to hear from our Corporation Counsel about, maybe not on the spot, but how this law can be written so that the LLC loophole is closed, and we still can protect a B&B owner by permitting them to incorporate. Is that possible?
Madam Mayor, Alderman Nguyen, with respect to the issue raised on the LLCs, that's obviously touching upon articles of incorporation, corporate liability, and yes, again, I would not feel entirely comfortable or competent to deliver a response, but we can certainly research that particular issue upon request, as the request has been phrased to us.
Madam Mayor, may I finish then?
Yes.
Then I think without this issue being resolved, I would not feel comfortable at all voting on it tonight. So I would like to know then what options are left to us procedurally. Because we've held it and held it, and we set it for a date certain. Do I have to set it on the table?
I think, and I will defer to the manager on this, it may be appropriate at this time to refer this entire ordinance back to staff for some consideration of this particular issue. I think that postponing to a definite time, we've already done that procedurally. It's getting a little murky if we were to do that again. As you all know, I'm not very comfortable with the issue of tabling, because that is even murkier than postponing to a definite time. So with that, I would, on the procedural aspect, I would defer to Manager Bobkowitz and solicit his guidance and input on this particular issue.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, it seems like there's additional comment from the council. Perhaps at the conclusion of that, we could make a suggestion.
Thank you. Alderman Grover, did you wish to speak again? Alderman Rainey.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I agree with Alderman Nguyen and Alderman Fisk that we're really not ready to deal with this at this time, that there needs to be a lot of massaging of this ordinance. Nobody's happy with it. So I'm going to move that I'm going to call the question on all the amendments so that it can be hopefully voted down and we can start from scratch.
Second.
My motion is to,
I understand your motion. I'm trying in parliamentary procedure to figure out which motion comes first.
Here's, oh, you mean the amendment?
The amendments.
Well, I mean, you can call those amendments, but I believe they're going to be voted down. But what I'm suggesting is that the question be called on the total package of amendments.
Oh, right. All right, that's easy.
So the entire thing before us.
Oh, no, there are technicalities.
Madam Mayor, I withdraw my motion. I withdraw my motion. What?
Go back to the first motion, the first amendment.
Then.
Yeah, if she wants.
All right, Alderman Fisk.
Could someone just clarify? City Manager, we're waiting for you to listen to all of this before you agree to send it back to staff?
That's not my prerogative.
Okay, but I understand. I'm sorry I phrased it that way. But I think that accomplishes what Alderman Rainey is asking for, and that is to clarify the entire ordinance and come back with something that actually reflects what we've been discussing here.
And then I would ask the city clerk, Mr. Clerk, are there any amendments still on the floor?
Alderman Nguyen's amendment.
She withdrew it.
There was another amendment.
So Alderman Fisk's
amendment.
And do you withdraw your amendment? So we're back then to a clean...
We're just voting on the ordinance, and if it is defeated, then it goes back to staff.
Well, not, Madam Mayor, members of the council, not, if it's defeated, it's defeated.
Yeah,
so if the motion is what is posted on the agenda, so you have ordinance 38-0-12 for action, then you may move the ordinance and have it voted up or down. And if it's voted up, it passes. If it's voted down, it's finished. Or there could be, I believe, the motion that Alderman Rainey was making is to refer back.
No, she's calling the question.
You're just calling the question up or down?
Yes, please do, Alderman Rainey.
My motion is to call the question on everything that is before us under the bed and breakfast amendment. And the purpose for doing that is I'm hoping that the motion the ordinance is defeated so that we then are left with the current bed and breakfast ordinance that can then be revised at some other time.
Okay. Alderman Fisk.
I'm sorry, but that sends us back to square one. And I think we've come too far beyond that to go back to square one.
Then let's take, my motion is on the floor and it's been seconded. Let's vote on this and see whether...
To call the question.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Alderman Nguyen.
We're voting on the motion to call the question?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I just wanted to understand. Okay.
There's another ordinance, amendment on the floor, that's Alderman Fisk.
No, she withdrew it.
She withdrew? I didn't hear her.
But I didn't hear her.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. We didn't know that.
So that's motion to call the question.
All right, so there's a motion to call the question, so...
We're voting on whether to vote.
But,
Could I just, may I know what...
What's called the question?
Questions on the vote. Could somebody state the question? For voting to call the question.
Is it a roll call?
Yeah, they just got to get it.
All right, City Clerk, the question's been called. Could we have a roll call vote on whether or not to call the question?
And Madam Mayor, I believe there's a question of the Alderman. It's to call the question on ordinance 380-12 as presented on the agenda this evening.
Yes is to...
Yes to vote, no to...
To do the next thing, which is to vote.
This is 01, correct? Yes.
This is 38012. Planning and development.
Do you need a roll call vote on calling the question?
Yes, we do.
It is the rule of the city clerk that we do.
Okay. Alderman, get a clean one. Yeah, no, get a clean one.
He needs a, we've had a lot of votes so far.
Alderman Burris?
Yeah.
Alderman Fisk? No. Alderman Braithwaite?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
No.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Holmes?
No.
Alderman Tindem?
Yes.
Alderman Grover?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
It's 5-3. 6 to 3.
6 to 3.
You have to have a majority of that.
It's a simple majority. The motion passes. All right, Mr. Farrar.
Council Rule 18.9 requires a two-thirds vote of all aldermen upon request that a roll call vote be done on calling the question. So 6 to 3 is two-thirds.
6 to 3 is two-thirds.
Yes.
So the motion passes.
Yes.
All right.
That was that
So now you're
motion
back
to
to-
kill it, right?
What?
Motion to kill it.
That was the motion to call the question.
Okay, now we're on the question.
Now the question is called
Yes.
on ordinance 38012. All right.
Now
So
we're voting on all the amendments. Yes.
There are no.
No.
they got withdrawn.
We got withdrawn.
We're voting on the...
You voting
yes,
on the
the
original?
ordinance. Yes, we're voting on the ordinance to amend the bed and breakfast ordinance.
Yes, you're voting on ordinance 38012, amending various portions of the city code relating to bed and breakfast establishments. Ordinance 38012, P1 under planning and development. Alderman Nguyen.
No,
Sorry. Okay. City Clerk.
Just have a restate what we're voting on. The motion.
The motion is to approve ordinance 38012, amending various portions of the city code relating to bed and breakfast establishments.
Everybody understand?
Are there any further questions?
We can't. We need to vote.
Yeah, I know.
No more votes.
He's finding the paper, Ann. We're good.
Okay. Alderman Burris?
No.
Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite? Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Holmes?
No.
Alderman Tindem?
No.
Alderman Grover?
No.
Alderman Rainey?
No.
7 to 2.
7 to 2, the ordinance is defeated. That concludes. What? No, it includes planning and development. We're on to Alderman Tindem.
Thank you.
Human Services, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Human Services, item H2, approval of the Harley Clark Mansion Next Steps, request for proposal, RFP. The Human Services Committee and staff recommend that the City Council authorize the City Manager to distribute the Harley Clark Mansion request for proposal to the 4 respondents of the request for information. or request for interest for the potential purchase or lease of the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House facilities. This is for action, and that is my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Rainey.
Madam Mayor, I read most of this, but I want to make certain that there's an agreement on the part of the council that this property has to be on the tax rolls and that it not be a not-for-profit use. And I'm still not clear on the fact that the land under the properties is not included in the sale of the mansion. I thought it was all the property around. I didn't understand that the property under the mansion, and I read in the proposal that the land under the mansion is not included in the project.
City Manager.
And Mr. McRae is here. He's been staffing the item, and I think he can read specifically from the RP. This was Alderman Rainey discussed at committee.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, City Clerk Green, Joe McRae, Deputy City Manager. Just trying to find my place. I'm sorry. It's my understanding that our RFP would include the buildings, the facilities only.
And Mr. McRae, members of the council, page 519 of your packet, the second one-sentence paragraph, the City of Evanston is not offering the land occupied by these buildings for sale.
I really understood that the surrounding properties absolutely were not included, but I didn't understand that the land, the real estate under the buildings. I think we're losing all that.
I have always said that I did not want any of the land around the building sold, not one blade of grass, but I am assuming there are a lot of blades of grass under the building.
But that was, I remember hearing you say that, and others of us saying that, but I didn't, I mean, it's a land trust, I don't, because our purpose is to have whoever takes this on be invested forever. So, anyway, I would like to move to amend that.
It's been moved and seconded to amend that. Alderman Fisk, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe there's still property taxes that would be payable on the house, but not the underlying land. I know that was the arrangement, Northwestern University at I believe it's 1915 Orrington, before they took over that house. The house was producing property tax revenue, but the land itself was not. So we would be having income from leasing the house.
But that's not my point. My point is that it makes it a more valuable object for someone to take on if it includes the land also. I think it's just a bad deal the other way around. And the property tax is a separate issue. I mean, I didn't see anything in the proposal that it must be on the tax rolls. And I'm just adding that.
Well, people do make payments in lieu of taxes, so I don't think we should preclude a deal like that.
I don't like the idea of a school going in there or Northwestern buying it for something. And I think it should be a straight, clear, simple deal. Has to be on the tax rolls, has to be a for-profit, blah, blah, blah.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you. Perhaps I misunderstood how this came out of committee, but I thought the idea of condoizing the property and the building was rejected by the committee, and we decided to offer options, and I'm not sure how the RFI went out, but I thought it was we were going to offer the RFP with different options for ownership. The building with the land underneath it, the building with the grounds around it. So I'm confused as to how it came out of committee, too, and whether the RFP reflects that.
Can we hold this till we get it right?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, our understanding coming out of committee was that the committee rejected that flexibility. Obviously, this is a city council decision. You may direct us however you feel is appropriate.
Alderman Fisk.
I'll pass for the moment.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
I actually remember this the same way that Alderman Grover does, that we asked for the flexibility to have options for request for information and request for proposal from entities, that it be with land or without the land, and it wasn't excluding. So we were asking for all comers. So I remember it the exact same way.
How much land were you willing?
Just the land that goes with the property.
That's the only land.
Right, that's not the park land around it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But this excludes the land under it, as it's written. Yeah.
Yes, I understand that. Alderman Grover.
Yeah, I think the intent was the intent was to minimize the size of the asset that we would be divesting ourselves of, and figuring out a way to find the balance between minimizing that asset but maximizing its attractiveness for potential next purchaser, a compatible use. And maybe we should rework the RFP a little bit to that end. And I'm sorry, I may have let it out of committee without the direction, but I thought it came out with either options or an outright rejection of the condo option model for ownership.
And Madam Mayor, Alderman Grover, I don't have minutes. I don't believe we have minutes in the room before us. But I think this is a simple fix. If the council wishes to have the four proposers express whatever proposal they feel is appropriate for their plans as part of this, we can certainly change that paragraph to reflect that.
Yes, it is presented as a draft, so certainly it's open to amendments.
Have you done appraisal of the property?
Yes, we have.
In one form or another? We
have.
Okay.
But, wait.
And what were we appraising? The building with the land beneath it, or the...
And Alderman Grover, members of the council, we'd be happy to bring that back to you in executive session.
I apologize for the confusion.
Alderman Fisk.
Well, I'm not sure this is a simple fix, since we went out to the four interested parties responded to the request for information based on a lease of the land. And not sale of the land. So obviously it's going to be generate a higher purchase price if land is included than if it's not included. And if that's the case, it may generate more bidders on the property. So I think we really need to start over again, if that's what we're going to do. But I do think it's a community value that's been expressed widely, that we not divest ourselves, especially of lakefront property.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
I move to hold this so that we can, also I would like to know the answer about the appraisal, whether it included the land or not, because that makes a big difference. Or if we did both.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, just to be clear of the lineage of the issue regarding the property versus the land, if you recall, we brought to you the RFI. And you had this conversation with the RFI. And the language of the RFI says, the City of Evanston is soliciting proposals that contemplate the purchase of the buildings and land occupied the buildings, the purchase of the buildings only, or the long-term lease of the buildings. So that was the first discussion that you had. It came back to the committee once we received the four respondents, and our understanding, and I apologize if this was incorrect, was the committee rejected the idea of including the property. So you've already solicited these four individuals with that language. If you would like, we can simply put the language back in that was in the RFI that then allows the proposers to propose whatever they like.
Alderman Fisk.
I'm sorry. I think that's unfair to the general public who might be interested in purchasing the property. But again, to limit it to the four that have already expressed.
But those four expressed their interest with these options.
So they could be
So the
included.
RFI that the four folks responded to said, contemplate the purchase of the buildings and land occupied by the buildings, the purchase of the buildings only, or the long-term lease of the buildings. So those four individuals saw that flexibility. When this came back to Human Services, if we incorrectly got a different direction, we apologize, but our recollection was that at that point when the RFP came to the Human Services Committee, that there was a change of course. So if you're going back to what you said in the RFI, I think that's fair to all concerned.
Okay, but those four individuals have expressed their agreement to the concept of leasing.
They've expressed their agreement that they would like to talk to us more. That is all they have done.
Okay.
And we have waited for their specific proposal based on, again, we've been trying to do this in a sequence of you accepting the four proposers, which is part of this motion in addition to approving the RFP. So I think if you go back to the language that was in the RFI with the RFP, you're being consistent, and then you allow those four interested parties to express what they think makes sense, and then you may evaluate that based on the use.
Alderman Rainey.
I think we should hold it and revisit it.
Okay, you made that motion and it was seconded, so
I mean, just do it at our next meeting. I'm not asking for any more.
And Alderman Rainey, what would your expectation be that we come back with that's different than what we've shared with you this evening?
Well, first of all, I did not recollect that there was confusion between what happened now and the earlier, what was it called?
Human Services Committee meeting. And
Request of interest. I just think that we're not all on the same page. I mean, it doesn't seem that way. Does everybody feel like they're on the same page?
Now I do.
I do?
Now I do.
I don't.
I do.
So are we going to exclude anybody else from coming forth?
At this point, yes. We've submitted, we have had an RFI, we've had four responders to an RFI who understand that we are flexible with the issue of the sale of the land. I now hear the council saying you would like that flexibility put back into the RFP.
Yes, that's what I would like. I would
And
definitely
my,
like that.
Alderman Rainey, I believe that's the will of the council, so if that's the case, I would propose a motion to authorize the issuance of the RFP with the reinsertion of this following language. The City of Evanston is soliciting proposals that contemplate the purchase of the buildings and the land occupied by the buildings, the purchase of the buildings only, or the long-term lease of the buildings. And those four proposers would express to us what their plan is.
That's okay.
So I would suggest that as a motion.
Alderman
What we
Holmes?
have before us does not include that.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think we fixed it, Ann. Alderman Holmes?
And the reason why it's not before us is because in Human Services, when it came back to us, we had already decided that it would go out as with the land included or not. However, came back to Human Services, and I think Alderman Fish, you were chairing. We had a discussion, we could not agree, and decided to move it on to council. So that's why it's here before us tonight in that respect. So it wasn't,
Right.
I can't remember the vote, but we decided to let it go ahead to council. That's my memory of it.
Well, so the translation...
It didn't change anything. I mean, it came back because the four bidders, or whatever we want to call them, came back with their proposals. We looked at that, decided to send it back on to council. So it wasn't
That's
the
not
man.
what came to us.
That's how it got here back tonight without a recommend,
Yeah, but it says very specifically, it does not include the land. That's what it
And if that was a mistake of staff's, we apologize.
Yes, I apologize.
Alderman Wilson?
Is the motion to hold withdrawn then?
I withdraw the second.
Sure, I'll withdraw it.
And I would therefore move that we authorize the city manager to issue the RFP conditioned on the language being revised such that it is consistent with the original RFI as to the uses of the property.
But could we see that? I mean, just share it with us as you send it out. I would really like to see that.
And we will share with the council the final version of the RFP once it is issued in the next 48 hours.
Absolutely.
Alderman Fisk?
Do we ask the responders to give us their their response based both on the purchase of the land and on lease of the property?
That's up to the council. Right now, you're providing flexibility for them to do that,
And they
or
can
any
do
other
that, not do
combination
that.
that they would
Remember,
like.
that's the
My
discussion we
recommendation,
had.
based on your discussion, is to not put any further parameters on it and to
Right.
let the proposers propose.
Okay, I'd like to see the difference if they don't respond.
Okay, Alderman Wilson's motion has been seconded, and Alderman Wilson is going to repeat it for me, because I see no further lights, and I think we're ready to vote on it.
I move that we authorize the city manager to issue the RFP conditioned on the language being revised such that it will reflect the original RFI proposal with regard to the use or possible uses of the property.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. City Clerk. We don't need to. We don't. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, 8 to 1, the motion passes. Alderman Grover, Economic Development.
That's H2. Oh, we did H2.
We did H.
Is H3 off? No, it was
Alderman Grover pulled H.
Oh, Alderman Grover.
Yes, you did. H3 was read in,
That's so.
I'm sorry.
but it was only for introduction.
All right. So Alderman Grover, we need Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move approval of Resolution 57R12, authorizing the city manager to execute an economic development grant agreement with CoLab Evanston LLC for approval of a $32,400 grant to fund the delivery of a series of entrepreneurial programs from August 15th through the end of 2012. Funding to be provided by the Economic Development Fund's Economic Development Partnership Contribution Account. Is there a second to
Second.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to move to hold this until the next meeting. There's some additional information that we're in the process of developing to get to the council to better explain this issue, and so I would like to hold. I move to hold. Second. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to hold this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's held. All right. That, I hope, that concludes everything. Kevin. We are at call of the wards. Alderman Burris? Oh, sorry, Alderman Rainey?
Madam Mayor, well, I didn't take the township bills off the consent agenda. I did ask several questions by email today, and I would just like to make sure at some point in time I get the answers.
City manager, did we?
We will do
I
our
don't
best.
remember who I sent them to, but I'll...
Mr. McCray was getting the bills questions today. The questions from the township, did you receive questions from the township? Alderman Rainey, if you'd be kind enough.
I will
get
send them
back to Mr.
again.
McCray,
Yeah,
and
I'll
we'll
send
work
them
with
again.
the township staff to get you
I don't
answers.
remember who I asked.
All right, the call of the wards. Alderman Burris?
Thank you. I'd like to make a referral to the Plan Commission to review the ordinance regarding building of play sets, playhouses in backyards. I also recently co-chaired a conference that brought 230 people to Evanston, and I want to say thank you to the many Evanston businesses that were just terrific in making everyone feel welcome. The Hilton Orrington, the Hilton Garden Inn, Homestead, Davis Transportation, who got people to and from the airport, MJ Catering, Wine Styles for great wine, and the Evanston History Center for hosting reception. And I want to let everybody know that we had people from all over the country, actually from around the world, positive remarks about Evanston from the retail stores. They loved Williams Shoes. They spent a lot of money there, to the restaurants and bars and a lot of time on at Tommy Niven's patio. They loved the lakefront path. They loved our beautiful beaches and our stunning architecture. So it was really nice to show off our town, and thank you to everybody that helped me.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
No report.
Wow. Thanks. Alderman Holmes.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Tandem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to just mention two very distinguished former residents of the 6th Ward. The first one is Paul Hammond, who about a month ago was, he's the CEO and president of Night Ministry. He was named a champion of change and honored at a reception at the White House in July. So he's a very, and his organization is really top-notch. If you're not familiar with Night Ministries, it's one to really get to know. They work very close to our border here in Evanston. The second one is the passing of Fern Persons. She's an actress best known with her supporting roles in Hoosiers and Field of Dreams in that recent work. But she also was very much an organizer for women and seniors in the film industry, both locally, and served for 20 years on the National SAG Board, and mingled with all the top names in Hollywood. So she was quite a character. She will be missed, and thank God there's a lot of things around to remind us of her. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, thank you for the diversity race dialogue last week. It really was wonderful, and it was attendance exceeded, I hope, all expectations. Second, the theater building lot has been vacant for a long time on Central Street, and construction has already begun at 1700 Central. And the Central Station apartments are under construction. The formal groundbreaking is Wednesday at 11:30, so please come and join us. It'll be quite nice. Hope for good weather, but we will finally kick off and welcome that project to Central Street.
Congratulations. Alderman Rainey.
Construction in this town is just really excellent. We do a lot of great things. The state helps us with a lot of great things. The feds help us with a lot of great things. We rarely thank the county for their efforts on our behalf. And some of the things the county does, we just do not have the authority to oversee. And I want to thank Larry Suffredin for helping me with two specific buildings in my ward. Without him, there would be chaos tonight. And he was extremely helpful, and I will tell you, his intervention created an immediate response on the part of the county, and I couldn't have been more impressed. And so I just wanted to say thank you to Larry and his staff.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Wilson, do you have a motion?
I do. Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel, collective bargaining, litigation, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, C2, C11, and C21.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Folks, we're going to clean the dais off.
We didn't get paperwork.
August. So if there's stuff on the dais.
No, we didn't get
want,
workman's
take it. All the little tchotchke things and the clips and all that are going to go away.
Good idea. Here, whoever wants.
I probably would fold out, but you can't fold it out.
It's the ugliest thing I ever saw. And they went to